to episode 73 of The Summoned, a podcast dedicated to the Judgment Eternal Champions miniatures game. I'm one of your hosts, David Coakley, aka Fabius Bile in the Discord, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, 73 David Wonky, Wonky Kong on the Discord. And how are you doing this evening, Wonky?
Doing good. I went to the driving range today because my friends are coming into town and we're golfing this weekend.
Okay.
And I wasn't as trash as I thought I would be because I had not golfed in 2 years. So
that is fair. It's kind of funny. Just for one of my buddy's birthdays recently, we actually went to the Top Golf driving range.
Okay.
As well as for another buddy's bachelor party. So got to visit the driving range for the first time in close to like 16 years for me.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, it hasn't been that long. I think it's been like 2 years, but I've got a buddy of mine back in town from Florida. Another buddy of mine just moved home from Arizona in the last couple of weeks. So we got 8 of us together, and we're making teams and doing scrambles, and there's a lot of smack talking going already. So I'm like, haven't swung the clubs, and then I actually got a new set of clubs for free from a friend of mine that was moving that had not used them in a while. And they're like, you can have them if you want them. And I'm like, sure.
Free clubs.
Yeah, because up through this point, my investment in golf essentially has been like $25 worth of clubs and like a $20 or $35 like golf glove. And then I think I bought balls like twice. Outside of that, it's like, because I got my clubs from Goodwill for like $2 an iron. I think it was like $5 for my driver, like $5 for the golf bay. It's been cheap. So now that I've upgraded to a new set of clubs, also for free, is something I'm a little bit proud of. I'm not great, but it's kind of fun to get outside. It's when the club's around, but yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, that's fair. I gotta say, doing the driving range was something that back when I was growing up, I had a park nearby, so I would just go hit them there.
Okay.
But actually being able to go to the driving range and actually like work on my form with one of my buddies and stuff like that, being able to hit that ball and watch it go, a solid 125, 130 yards for me was awesome.
Yeah, I think I was driving over, so I'm not good, but I think I'm lucky if I'm not in triple digits when I shoot 18. So I think I was hitting my new driver pretty well. I think I was going like well over 150 driving, and then I had like a 5 hybrid because I've never really hit hybrids. I only had cheap Wilson irons.
Right.
And I was hitting like my hybrid like pretty good, like around 150. I was feeling pretty good, and then towards the end I was feeling good, like trying to get like good lines and not like completely like slicing it like crazy. So
right.
I was feeling pretty good by the end of it. And then of course, when I get to like actually golfing on Saturday, I'll probably be complete shit. But that's what beer is for.
Correct. I mean, let's be real. We go out to these places, we hit the little white balls to chase them down and put them into little holes while drinking beer. That's why we do it.
That is a pretty important component of the situation.
Correct. So, well, guys, normally Wonky and I would jump right into things like the Hobby Corner, Judgment News, but tonight we have a special thing that we're going to do for you guys. So we are skipping all of that. Wonky and I are on our 73rd episode, as we mentioned, and we have decided that we're going to do a tier list for all of the gods and the champions. Sorry, not the gods, the champions. And so in being with that being a podcast thing, not as visually pleasing, Wonky has taken the time to set up a video stream as well, or a video recording to be able to allow you guys to watch this at the same time with the video and audio as well.
Yep. So it'll be on our YouTube channel. It'll get released at the same time that the podcast is. So you can listen to it in audio form, or if you also want to watch it in visual with the little tier maker tool to follow along with us. We'll have it basically in both formats.
So with that, Wonky, why don't you walk us through our tiers real quick and what that's going to mean?
So we're going to do a pretty generic tier list here as far as tiers are going. So S tier is basically going to be kind of like that auto-include, like an auto-include in the god, probably auto-include out of the god. The things that we definitely think are just strong no matter where they are. Our A tier will be kind of more the things that are strong into the god, You might see them out of God, but probably a bit less likely. So things that are still generally good, but probably not quite above the curve like some of the S tier. B tier will be things that are pretty good in the God or like niche picks in the God, stuff you won't see really out of God very often. C tier will be just even more niche than that. And then D for dumpster, we'll call it. Because, of course, we got to have a couple of hot takes when we're doing a tier list, right?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. If it's D, shouldn't it just be DF for dumpster fire?
I mean, it could be. Get a little dumpster logo down there. So D tier will be things that just even in God aren't really taken. I think one thing we'll call it too is some of the D tier stuff might be things that are good in certain scenarios, but aren't generally good or take a lot of work to make good.
Right.
And, you know, and the thing about this game is, right, is everything can work to some extent, depending on the amount of effort and what you're building around it. So this is not, like, we'll take some of that into account, right? Yep. But this is kind of just a general tier list and power list. Again, and also this is for the 2.3 patch. I don't think we had stated that yet. Nope, this is for the 2.3 patch that is out. So we're still relatively new. We're what? Just almost a month in to the 2.3.
Yeah.
We haven't had a whole lot of events. We've had the one team event. That's really been it. I don't think there's been big in-person events. There might have been a couple local ones. I don't think we've had any qualifiers yet. So some of it's a little bit speculative.
Sure.
Based on the changes.
Let's be real. It's a tier list based on our opinions here. This means nothing from official channels, right? This is just us spitting something out there, and we thought it'd be fun to do.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I don't think we've seen a tier list yet kind of done in this sort of a format. So yeah, why the fuck not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, why not? I don't remember because I know that TCW did something a while back in his intro videos where he talked about different kind of levels of models and stuff, but that was a long time ago.
Okay.
And you and I both know models have come a long way since then with the patches to the game and obviously updates to models getting changes.
And so he had no one to argue with, right?
Correct.
Like, that's half the fun of a tier list.
Correct. That's why we're going to do this way because, you know, obviously we're going to agree on some things and other things we're going to disagree on, and it's going to be fun to hear that. So,
yep.
All right. Well, Wonky, let's kick this off.
And we are going in no specific order. We're, well, alphabetical. So, yeah, we get to start off with probably one of the more fun ones, and that is Abathos. I am of the mind he is a D tier hero.
Okay.
I'm going to move him there to see your rebuttal.
All right. So I'm curious as to your opinion first off as to why he is a D tier hero.
So I think he enables some interesting things. The applesauce bomb, primarily.
Sure.
I think if you are not playing him to that extent, he just seems kind of lackluster. Now, some of that is I just haven't seen him. I mean, I played against him the other night. And while he didn't really get the applesauce bomb out because of bans and whatnot, but like the curse AoE was okay, and gravity well was annoying. He just didn't do anything.
Sure.
I think his big problem to me is that his melee damage grid is just ass.
I mean, it's a 1-2-4, and that's hard to work with.
It's just not good. He's melee 6. He has really cool level ups.
Yep.
But they're focused on the very mediocre melee attack. That just
some of them are, yes.
Some of the cooler ones to me are.
I would agree with that.
And that's kind of my problem with them. And this is based purely off rules, because I think his model's sweet. I think his model is amazing. I really enjoy his model. But rules-wise, I don't know. I just haven't seen him do much outside of enabling the applesauce bomb.
I mean, that's fair. Look, the applesauce bomb is something that, obviously is very, very niche. Especially because it really only tends to work with like two heroes, right?
Yep.
You're either going to do it with Fazil or you're going to do it with Nephany. But realistically, I think Abathos, I don't think he's a D tier hero myself. I actually think he's a C hero. I'd like to put him higher than that, but it feels like for some of the other like for the gods that he's a part of, you have other options that you can take to be that magic user that blasts people. So that's why I can't rate him into like a B. But his being the fact that he enables the hit from Nephany Fazil, or even just the ability to grab like an extra +1 magic without having to take an item because of his one level.
I mean, do you really want to give him a level though?
Actually, I don't mind giving him a level.
Okay, because I feel like there's a lot of. Well, I guess it depends on your warband a lot.
Correct. It always depends on your warband, but he's one of those heroes that I honestly think that if you're gonna play him and you want to play him well and make him part of the warband, you have to spend a little bit of investment into him, right? So I don't think he's a D class hero. Okay. I think he's a C class hero. Personally.
Okay. And I'm gonna push back on this a little bit.
Sure, by all means.
So, who do you like? Do you think there's a hero worse than Abathos?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Because I'm still leaning on D, but I'll move him to C. But he is, to me, at the very bottom of C tier if he's a C tier hero. Like
sure, he's a C minus. I'll give you that.
He's a C minus. He'll be at the bottom. He'll be at the very bottom because we're also going to order it by within the tier itself. I think as we get going here. So since he's the first one, he'll be at the top of C. But I think he will very quickly.
Oh yeah, he'll definitely. Drop.
He'll very quickly drop out or to the bottom of C tier. And I'm still pushing more for a D tier, but Fabius, in a show of good faith as our first hero.
Look.
I'll agree with you to a C tier.
If he drops to a D tier because of other things that we talk about,
right.
I'll gladly change my opinion on that.
Okay.
I'm not going to be like, no, I'm going to fight it constantly. No.
All right. I mean, trust me, I love the model. I actually don't have him yet. I probably should get him, but I also am not really much of a Kragnar Tauren player.
That's fair.
But yeah, I do like Tomas, right? So the applesauce bomb's fun.
Right.
Yeah,
now, I do agree with you that I think he would definitely be a better hero if some of his level up abilities were not so focused on his melee and he could do them on, say, melee or shooting, right?
Yeah, I could maybe get behind that. However, I think Devour would be really bad to have.
I think Devour would be like, you can't do Devour on a range.
I mean,
but like his Steel Magic, I honestly think his Steel Magic on a range attack would be cool.
Because you do have to damage.
Mm-hmm. And he's a genie. Like, that's my whole thing.
I could kind of see it. My concern would be, because he shoots 5 hexes, right?
Yeah, he is a 5 hex shooter.
So you could remove stuff without a lot of risk, where like the other models that do remove stuff have risk to them. So I don't know if I'd like it from 5 inches, but it would be intriguing.
Yeah.
Definitely some ways that would be able to bring him up. I think would be some better level ups or allowing it to work off the magic in some way, shape, or form.
And that's part of my reasoning is the fact that it's a level up. It's not something he gets innately. So.
All right. So next up, we have the elf sniper boy, Alandir.
All right.
I've been playing him a bunch in Gruul lately to very good effect.
Look, I'll be honest with you, man. He's one of my favorite models to throw out there, even as just a random model in a warband.
Yeah.
To me, this man's an A.
I mean, I'm definitely not against the A. I'm almost leaning towards S. He might be the best ranged or magic damage dealer in the game. I mean, he's got to be close, if not the best.
He's close. I don't think that Look, to me, he's not an S tier because he's not an auto include in, almost every list I want to build.
Do
Um,
you not? I mean, I guess I don't play Tauren, but I feel like if I play Tauren, he's one of the first models I'm grabbing.
sure, in Tauren, yeah.
Okay.
Um, but like, he's not one of the first models I consider in like if we're talking the S tier. Remember, if we're just talking that it's just in God,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, then he's definitely an S tier because
Yeah, I mean, I don't think S tier needs to be like good at. I mean, I think Alan. I actually think Alan just probably fine in any warband. Um, like I definitely feels like if I'm playing maybe not
but
Ista because I like to go a little bit more tanky in Ista. But
I I mean, look, as a ranged as a ranged aggressor or a sniper or whatever the hell they want to call him now.
I think he's
Um,
sniper. Yeah.
um, he's definitely got one of the best kits in the game, in my opinion, because he's got
Okay.
he's got a long range reach of 6.
Mm-hmm.
He's got anti-healing with a fate ability. He's got the ability through his combat maneuvers to bounce shots into people.
Mm-hmm.
He's a solid A tier model at a minimum. I don't I mean, he might be an S tier model, but he's not the first model I reach for every time.
I
Um,
mean, I think if I'm looking for range damage, he is pretty up there to the first one I grab, especially in God. Um,
See, and I'll be honest, I grab Astariel faster than I grab him.
that's intriguing. Well, I mean, it depends a bit on what the rest of the warband is, because the innate armor shred's kind of a big deal.
Correct.
But
So
yeah,
that like
okay.
I'm willing to bump him up to S tier for now as well. It's one of those things that I definitely know that he is at least an A tier.
I
There's no
definitely,
argument there.
I think I'll agree with you. We'll keep him in the A tier, and maybe as we get a couple more rankings and we're kind of seeing how things are falling, we'll see
Hmm.
if he moves up. But I think Alandir is definitely at the top of the A tier.
Definitely.
Um, top 2 shooter in the game, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I
All right.
definitely can't disagree with that. So,
Okay. So I think we're good for now.
yep.
I think the only thing that brings him down might be that to really go into armor, he needs levels. I feel like he's a bit bad into heavy armor targets, but with his range, it's not hard for him to find something to pick on, which is basically what I've been doing. Like, I've been
Yeah.
playing him in Gruul because I wanted a really good range threat, and the amount of work he can put in is just wild.
Yeah.
You usually can set him up to shoot 3 times on turn 2. You don't give much of a shit what he's shooting into unless it's high res stuff, and then he just tees off. So,
Yep.
all right. So next up is Arya. So this is a hero that community perception's been kind of low on. She doesn't
Hmm.
very oftenly taken.
Yep.
I've actually been trying her out a bit more. Guns did well with her in his Gruul warband in the last league. I've been trying her in what I'm currently cooking with Gruul. I saw a game tonight where someone was playing Gruul and playing her, so I think people are picking up on her a little bit.
Sure.
She probably has one of the strongest active abilities in the game in Allure.
I think she's got 2 of them personally.
Sleep's pretty
Yep.
strong as well. The big knock on her is her magic attack is 2 action points. It's shorter range at reach 4. If you
Yep.
want to get the second shot, you've got to roll like proper dice, which feels weird.
Yeah.
So like, but the other stuff she does, she's very mobile with Pathfinder. She gets +1 move if she's in that stuff. She regens 1, so if she gets some chip damage with the Agi 5. I've really been enjoying leveling her and getting her duplicate self to make her much more difficult to deal with.
Hmm.
I did, however, level her and go immunity curse when I was playing against the Abathos, because I was like, I'm just done with this shit. Like, you can also immune knockdown, which with Agi 5 is kind of fun. So
Yeah.
she can actually be surprisingly difficult to deal with.
Sure.
Her personal output's not the greatest, but I've been using her because I've been using her with Zafin for some poison, and
Yep.
then bringing along a Rakir
Yep.
to kind of have some poison options in Gruul. As far as a tier list goes, I mean, she for a while was not a model I would really grab in Gruul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if I've seen her in Torin ever.
I've taken her in Torin.
Okay. And I've seen her, I think she used to kind of on occasion be in Bruellen.
Yeah,
I think that was mostly from Robbie, I think, was playing her in Bruellen as like an initiator piece. Um,
probably.
I don't think I really would necessarily. Now with the changes to the EP, I don't know if it's as big of a deal.
Sure.
Um, I think she's a little bit niche of a pick. I think you kind of want to have a plan for her. I don't think you can just slap her in any warband. She's also in a pretty contentious spot in warbands, being, that kind of support off Soul Gazer
Yep.
kind of type thing. So I'm leaning more in the C range
Okay.
with her. I think it's the problem is she'll have activations where she doesn't feel like she can use all of her actions, right? Because it's like you allure, but they don't like if you don't necessarily walk them into you, or you have to double walk an allure, and like is that worth her whole activation? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I've been having some decent luck with her, but the game has kind of dictated it because I've been playing with Zafin. So like you have to come in on Zafin. I allure you off of my Zafin, and then I punch you a whole bunch of times with the Drogoth. So it kind of works. I haven't like. Did you have any luck? Like when you had her with Torin, did you have any good luck with her?
So in Torin, I actually spent the time to like give her, as weird as this sounds, I gave her first level.
Okay.
And I actually took suggestion with her. So then like I would have Bastion and her in the warband together. So it was like, cool, if you come into me like you want to, I'm going to be able to suggestion multiple of your models to hit each other.
Okay.
Right. So that actually gave me some really good counterplay with that. But then on top of that, like you said, the fact that she's got sleep and her sleep is an action or a fate, which is actually a really big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that changes action economy, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like to put her as a B tier hero, but I just don't think she's quite there.
Yeah, I think.
I think she's a C tier hero because she's not, like you said, the first model you reach for.
Oh, I mean, she's far from the first one
Correct. That's what I mean,
for.
though. She's not
Yeah.
the first model you reach for. She's not going to be that model that's going to, that you're going to immediately be like, okay, I've done these 2 or 3 models. Let me grab Arya. She's usually that slot where you're like, okay, I've got these 5. What to complement these 5?
Okay.
Arya's there. So I think you're definitely right on with her being like a C tier hero. She is definitely above Abathos on that
Yeah,
C tier.
I would 100% say she's above the Abathos. Easily.
So, yeah.
All right. Now, next up, we got one of your favorites, and we got Ashel.
Hell yeah.
So Ashel saw some pretty big improvements in patch 2.3.
Yep.
To the point that I got a feeling we're going to see him a lot more.
I hope so, because, I mean, I'll be honest, let's be real. If we were talking about this pre-patch, I'm going to tell you right now, Ashel's a dumpster fire waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So he was a D tier hero. Now, realistically, Ashel's gotten some improvements with his damage improvement to his melee. That helps with the change to critical rage being an interrupt as a level up. It's actually very viable to use, especially against monsters, things like that.
Well, I mean, it just increases the risk of when you go in on him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to crit for the damage and they've got Fate and Critical Rage,
Correct.
you can make that attack and you can push, and then either that unsticks them to be able to shoot, or prevents you from spending, your next action attacking, right? If you charge them,
Yep.
you crit them because you want to do the damage. Now, granted, you can take dice to not crit to get that second attack, but it still forces you to do that. And it's always a thing you got to be weary about when your opponent has Fate.
Well, I mean, and a perfect example where that's going to, be very detrimental is a hero that we just saw released recently, which was Nephany.
Mm-hmm.
When your damage grid is 1, 2, 4, and all of a sudden they go, cool, critical rage hits you, bam, and they push away. Well, now you have to either take that solid, which is only 2,
Yeah.
and give up 2 damage, or you're going to take that crit, and then who knows how many dice they're getting or anything, and they get that push.
Yeah.
Well, there that goes. So,
Yeah.
like, Ashel's love, like, his new ability, I think, brings him out of the D tier. Um, I would like to say that it pushes him further up, but I honestly am not sure he's still above, at most, a B.
Yeah, so I think he is solidly in a B.
And see, and that's where I'm at too.
And I think he might be trending towards A, just on the back of the ability to pin multiple models in an activation.
Sure.
Pin is
huge.
Pin is insanely strong. It is very rare you have a model in this game that doesn't want to move in its activation. And being able to pin up to 4 models, now granted, dice dependent, board positioning dependent.
Yep.
But I don't think it's out of the realm for him to necessarily be able to pin 2 models. And the way that it's worded, you don't have to spend it until the end of the activation either.
Correct.
So you can see what happens and then spend the fate. And I think this is one of the only... I think it's like this. I think like Cruel Soul Strip.
Yeah.
Like these are some of the only abilities where you're like, hey, I can do a thing and then I spend a fate after the fact if I know I've done what I've wanted to do.
Yep.
In bare minimum, if you spend the fate to give 1 model pin, your opponent's at least spending a fate to have a meaningful activation with that model.
Correct.
Because I'm just like, hey, I hit a Drelgoth. Okay, well, he can leap because you can still leap while advancing, but it limits what he can do. Okay, well, let's do like a Zonia. There we go.
I was going to say, let's do a Zonia or an Ephany.
Zonia, Nephany, like any of those, like they can't do anything. Brock, they can't do anything with the pin. They have to spend a fate. Yep. So it's like you're spending a fate to make that model have to spend a fate. And then if you trigger a bombard and damage a second model, now you're pinning 2 models.
2 models. Yep.
And you're essentially making your opponent spend 2 fate. Like if I pin, let's say I hit a Zonia and a Lugdrug. Okay, I'm pinning both of them. Well, Lugdrug, yeah, he's got a little bit he can do. Like, okay, you get the ward place. He might be able to shoot your 3 Hax Reach gun. But he wants to be up doing stuff. He wants to be in position near the Zonia or whatever his ward is.
Yep.
And you have to spend the fate to clear it, to make those models have a thing. So I think that's a thing I don't think people have seen much.
Yeah.
Because Ashel hasn't been getting taken. I think Ashel's been, from our Meta Watch segments, like one of the lowest picked models. Because the 2 action point gun definitely has some detriment to it. The Reach 6 is good. But Alandir's also Reach 6, and he doesn't have that shitty of a floor.
No, he doesn't.
Also brings the fire. I think Ashel has some pretty good level ups. I think Bullseye and Ghost Shot, depending on the board and stuff, are good.
Yep.
Enhanced Bombard's kind of nice to not need the J. Critical Rage, I think his level ups are all kind of interesting now too. But I think Ashel to me is solidly in a B. I think if you're in one of the gods, you're gonna look at him. I don't know if you're going to reach for him outside of God very often.
Right.
Unless you really want to try and abuse the pin. That's really what I kind of foresee.
I think so.
Where the value could be from there.
Yeah.
But I think solidly in a B. And we'll kind of see once we get to other B-level heroes.
Well, and I was going to say, we know that Kavarda is coming because we just saw that being dropped on the Discord.
Yep.
So I honestly would not be surprised to see Ashel, raise up a little bit even more once Kavarda's out, if he's still got the whole mind control thing.
Yeah, I mean, any of the 2 action attackers do, I think, gain some value, but then you're reliant on having them plus Kavardo. But it does definitely, I think, increase the usefulness.
Yep.
Okay, I think Ashel's B were pretty good. All right, Barnascus is next up. Quite like Barney. my gut reaction is like lower B, upper C. He's kind of like a backup to all of your things, but not really like a star of a warband. That's kind of how I feel him. Like, he feels good in Ista. He feels good in Bruellen. I think he's very good at New Bruellen, to be honest.
Yeah.
He charges and hits really fucking hard now.
Yep.
Like, I played a game against some... who did I play against? I was playing Bruellen. I think it was my game against Aaron. And he charged me with Barney, and I'm like, holy shit, that guy hits hard on a charge attack. Because he gets the mounted, plus he gets Bruellen, and then he gets a +1 melee, and then you get the extra dice for mounted. Like, that guy's kind of scary on a charge. And then you get unerring accuracy if you want the knockdown, or you push off, or you knock him down, then shoot him with the flamethrowers unerring accuracy. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Barney. I think he feels just very well balanced. Like, he doesn't feel outrageous one way or the other to me. I don't know. Thoughts on Barney?
So I definitely think that I would not classify him as a C-class hero. I would classify him as a B.
Okay.
A solid B, simply because he has, like, again, he has a very well-rounded tool set. He has ways to do true damage. He has ways to stop healing. Mm-hmm. The two gods that he plays in play him very, very well. Yeah. And all of his level ups, as weird as this sounds, they actually really, really work well with him. Because being able to ignore the first knockdown at level 2 and then level 3 going, cool, I'm just going to start dishing out true damage for people that are sitting around me or entering around me. Basically, anything I'm doing is this 2-hex field. You're just going to start taking damage. It's really freaking annoying. And the
repair gets better when he levels too. So he's like, right? You can just trade a 1 action point for like a crit. It's like, all right, I just heal for 5. Like, screw it.
Yeah, I mean, when you can literally go, cool, I'll just spend an action to heal 5 instead of a fate to heal 5. Yep. Yeah, that's... So I think, as much as I would like to say that I think he's a, lower, like, you said he's a higher class C, lower class B. I honestly think Barney is right in that nice middle zone of the B.
Yeah, he just feels good. He feels right in the middle of the power curve. I normally don't feel bad taking him. I don't think he's busted. I don't hate seeing him across the table like other stuff. So I think Barney's pretty good. I don't think there's much debate on Barney.
Nope.
He's just there.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move right into the next one then, which is Bastion, our first avatar.
Our first avatar.
So, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. Bastion is one of those models that I've watched, like I've played him. I've watched him be played. He can feel really game-breaking at times. He can feel very lackluster at times. And realistically, I think the only time I ever reach for Bastion personally most of the time is when I'm playing Tauren. I don't know about you. What's your thoughts?
I think he kind of fills that very contentious slot, right? That supporter, non-soul gazer kind of role. Mm-hmm. However, I mean, I feel like if you're playing Tauren, you are taking Bastion. And that was kind of one of the things we were talking about a bit with A tier, is that they're commonly taken in their god, was kind of one of the things. I think he provides a lot to the warbands he's in. And like I said, I think if you're playing Tauren, I don't think I've ever seen a Tauren warband without him.
I've played one, I can say that, because I chose to ignore him, but...
Which seems weird to me a little bit. Like, the amount of healing you can do with the avatar bonus is kind of wild without fate. Mm-hmm. Time Bender's pretty wild if your opponent doesn't have anti-healing. I think his condition removal is a bit funkier now that it's a combat maneuver versus an action like it was in V1. Heroic Ballad is one of the best buffs in the game.
Sure.
I mean, you just have to kind of be there. And adding a die is good. I feel pretty confident in putting him up in the A tier. I mean, that feels pretty reasonable to me. Where he falls in the A tier, I am unsure. But I think the fact that you will never see a Tauren warband without him unless you're actively trying to ignore him. So
unless you're me.
Yeah, which I still feel is weird. All
No,
right.
that's fair. All right. So with that, let's jump right into the Dwarven Berserker Brock.
Uh huh.
All right. Look, man, I mean, if you want to talk about people that do a job in this game and are constantly reached for in God, out of God, so on and so forth, just have good all around abilities, it's Brock, man.
Yeah.
This man is taken in Tauren, he's taken in Bruellen, he's taken in Ista. I have seen people take him in, freaking Gruul.
I've not seen him in Gruul.
Um,
Interesting. Okay.
I've seen him in Gruul occasionally, like when I have a friend actually who refuses to play Thorgar in Gruul.
Okay.
Um, and the reason for that is because every time they take Thorgar and Gruul, Thorgar just dumps on them.
Okay.
Like legitimately have rolled 11 dice attacks and not gotten a crit or a solid out of it.
All right. And
So
so then they take the more crit dependent Brock.
and they do well with him.
Okay.
Their
Interesting.
their dice just like Brock better apparently.
Yeah.
So like I've seen it, right? But I mean realistically, let's talk about Brock as a whole with being melee 7, has the ability to give himself melee 8 plus a res,
Yeah.
has the ability to hit everybody around him, has the ability when he crits to swing again, and has Monster Slayer innately. I mean, this dude has one job, and it is go hunt things down and murderize them.
Yeah.
And he does it. So, like, for me, I would definitely say Brock is in that A tier.
Okay. I don't think he is an auto include in every warband you play. I think he's definitely auto include for sure in his gods. I think you'll see him definitely in Tauren.
Yep.
But I don't see him like being overtuned, right? Like I don't think he is like busted.
No.
So I think because it sounds like we're being a little harsh on S tier. Because he might be the first one I would think about putting into S tier. Because I think he is universally good, and I don't think I actually don't. Actually, I almost might say he's S tier because I don't think you could put him in a warband and ever feel bad about it. Like,
you know what? I'm with that. Let's do that then.
I think he is just always good. I like the only one I might not put him in would maybe be like Tomas, but I think you could even bring him in Tomas if you're playing a bit more debuff centric, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna poison or frost something. Now Brock gets more damage. Now he murders it.
Yeah,
and he's Fate Light, which Tomas can like.
That is the other part about him is that as a whole he's Fate Light, and even as he levels up, because let's be real, it's Brock, he's gonna level up.
Yeah.
You're gonna get ways to bust tanks too. So he really just has a kit that does it all. So I'm 100% okay with let's move him from the A tier to an S tier.
I think he's an S tier until we get proven otherwise.
That is fair.
But what's weird is I don't think he's like a broken character S tier.
No.
I just think he's really good. Because I think there'll be some we get to where like, all right, they're S tier and they're probably too good. We'll get to some of those. But
yep.
All right. So
okay,
from an S tier, probably dumpster tier. Now, there's been some Cradle discourse going on lately. At least, Guns has been playing her,
right,
and singing her praises. I think there's been some other folks playing her.
There have been.
I think as much as I would, and part of this is I have maybe not played her enough. Besides when we did the worst warband challenge. I do think she might still be, in general, one of the worst heroes in the game.
Okay.
She does have a very strong kit. She does have a lot of interesting things she can do.
Sure.
But she feels very highly dice dependent. And I think she's got a bit more place now in 2.3 because of the Bruellen changes.
Sure.
I think the unerring accuracy, the +1 melee, the extra charge damage, I think can be a big deal for her. She still has one of the most important abilities in the game at level 2, the ability to remove tokens.
Okay.
Does require Shadow Mist, but it's not an action. I think it's still 2 hexes, right?
It is.
Yeah, Shadow Cleanse. Yeah, Shadow Cleanse at level 2. Probably still one of the strongest abilities in the game, along with Styx Nullify is one of the few ways to remove things. So there is definitely a bunch of value there. But I think the, like, being undead, so when she dies, she gives them a bank soul. Her stat line is not the greatest for wanting to really mix it up. You definitely got to give her some support, I think, to make her work. I know I'm pretty sure Guns was running her with Lug Drug, and then she's the ward, which then probably lets her operate a bit better, because normally if you can avoid the ward target, you just kind of avoid the ward target, and then you kind of have to level up Lug Drug to make her work.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, for me, she's still in the D tier. I would have to play her more or see her played well more to move her out of the D tier.
Sure. So I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think if you're using her just for her damage output, yeah, she's a dumpster hero. She's a D hero. But if you look at what abilities she brings to the table, if you play her well with, her Shadow Door, her Shadow Rift, being able to move people around that way, give her a level so she can cleanse. I honestly think that probably pushes her toward much closer to that of like the bottom ranked C heroes. But the thing is again, it's about the amount of investment time and investment weight you have to put into her. And I think that there's a ton of effort you have to put into playing her to be able to play her well, to be that C tier hero. And it's just something that a lot of people just aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
So I think for most people, she's commonly a D tier hero.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think we leave her
I don't disagree. There. I think someone's got to be at the bottom.
Yep.
And right now, sadly, it feels like it's Cradle. That's just where we're at.
Yep. I definitely would agree with you.
All right. Donergar. I mean, come on. Right?
No.
Yes, dear.
No.
All right.
No.
No. All right. I will say, okay, so Donergar, for a while was the most popular tank. We were seeing him literally everywhere. Every god was taking him. He's, to me, in Gruul, I pretty much put him in every Gruul warband. He is the only tank Gruul has at the moment, so it does kind of shift things
Right.
a little bit. He really does like the EP. It lets you get the whole not pushing thing while not in stone form. With stone form, he's one of the most difficult things to remove. He's very good at not dying. He doesn't necessarily do a whole lot outside of that, which is kind of the biggest knock against him. But he is fantastic at not dying. I actually don't think he's necessarily S tier. I actually probably would feel like I would put him more in high A.
I would agree with that.
I think he's very good. He can be very difficult to deal with. I don't think you're seeing him in every warband like you were.
No.
I think partly people are trying some other stuff. I think the buffs to Skull helped, because I think you were seeing him a lot in Bruelid and Kragnar a bit to have that really sturdy tank, and I think with the buffs to Skull, we're kind of seeing him a bit more. I think you could play him in any warband and feel good, but you do have to understand you're not getting necessarily as much setup or value outside of having something not killable.
Right.
Which, if that's what you're going for, Donergar's kind of your man.
Now, I will give Donnie the fact that he is taken in, like, when you're playing Gruul or Ista, he kind of is that staple point, right? Unless you're Guns, because I have seen Guns play without him in Gruul.
Yeah.
And so, but he's got some really good, solid abilities. But he's definitely not being taken, like you said, all over the place like he was, because I even took him in Tomas for a while. And I think, so I definitely agree that I think Donnie's a solid A, like top end of the A class heroes.
Yep.
So,
And I would probably put him above Alandir from the pure fact that a lot of people like to run two tanks. We were seeing him a lot out of God for a while. So to
Yep,
me, that probably puts him above Alandir at
I
the
think
moment.
so.
So,
All right. Well,
all right,
let's move
next
into
up
the next
is,
one, which is
yeah.
Drogoth.
Yeah, he's actually a hard one for me. I've been playing him a shit ton in Gruul. I've been really enjoying Blood Challenge a lot.
I
He's a very good staff of Gruul target with dual wield, getting additional chances at the combat maneuver. We were seeing him, I think, in Torin.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if we were seeing him outside of Torin and out of God, though.
Um well, I mean, I honestly think that personally, Drogoth is one of the overall he's one of the best. I think he's one of the best models in the game, personally.
Okay.
The fact that he brings dual wield to the table, he's got a solid damage grid of 2, 3, 4. He's hard as hell to lock down because he's got leap,
He does,
and
yeah,
he's
the
got, if
escape's
you,
nice.
yeah, it's escape, which is nice. He's also got infernal as a level up, which is something a lot of the times people take. He's got empower, which just gives the extra true damage, and then like you said, he's got blood challenge, right? I honestly, we don't have another hero that really does what he does with blood challenge,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a huge thing. I mean, being able to, for example, you know, especially with the new changes to Skull, be like, cool, I'm in a blood challenge. Now I'm going to charge into that model. You can't look out.
Yeah, no lookout, no
No bulwark.
redirect from Donragar, no blood
Yeah,
challenge, or not blood, bulwark.
no bulwark.
So,
So I honestly would say that to me, he's a model that, like, no matter what god I'm playing, I look at him
okay.
personally. Like, so he's an S tier to me
All right.
because he just brings.
Do you think he is better or worse than Brock?
Um, I okay. I think they both are about equal. That's the problem. So
No,
I would
you
say
gotta pick
leave.
one. Pat, you
Okay,
gotta pick one.
okay, fine. Put him above Brock.
All right.
I will say that he's above Brock for one reason, and that's because he is not crit dependent
Okay.
to get the extra attacks and
Yeah, to get
stuff.
the extra damage.
Yep.
All right.
Um, but yeah, so I would say Drogoth is definitely an S tier for me.
Okay. I mean, I love him a lot. I have found it very hard to not play him when playing Gruul, which obviously I play primarily. I think he is insanely strong in Bruellen now.
Mm-hmm.
Unerring accuracy, giving him extra melee, extra damage on the charge. I mean,
Yep.
that guy on EP turn is frightening.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So
I can get behind it. All right. Next up is your boy,
yeah, let's get into
Fazil.
Fazil, baby. Look, man, we're talking about these models that if you are talking about them fitting into their god, they're constantly seen. I haven't seen a single Tomas player that plays Tomas without bringing Fazil in the warband.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I've ever seen somebody do that. Even for the people who are like, well, I'm not a big fan of Undead, he's still there.
Yeah.
And especially after patch 2.3, with seeing these warbands that I've seen built, Fazil seems to be like the number one ban target for Tomas just because of the kit he brings with decap, with poison or curse flexibility, and then of course he's still got mounted with the charge and the blessing of Tomas tokens now on effigy power turn. This is a guy who utilizes everything that Tomas is about to the fullest extent, right?
Yeah, he especially now with the change to Tomas with the blessings where you know you've got the fate
Yeah,
to be able to decap. And like you said, I don't think you'll ever see a Tomas list without him. Um, I don't. I think the undead can be a bit of a detriment to him.
sure,
I would actually not put him in S tier because of that. I mean,
sure.
we've seen him a little bit outside of God.
Mm-hmm.
I know a couple people. I think like Jeremy ran him in Kragnar.
Yep.
Kunarbus
I
ran him in Kragnar.
I love to do that.
So I think there could be some value there. You can charge and finish someone off, extra one effigy recall. I don't think you'd really ever see him in Tauren. I think he's too fate dependent for what Tauren wants. I don't think I would run him in Gruul. I don't know.
I think you have better choices in Gruul.
Yeah, I don't think I would do that. So I don't think I would really push him to S tier because of that. I think Undead is a little bit of a double-edged sword. That kind of prevents it. I'm going to put him above Donragar from the perspective that I think you would not play Tomas without him. And his impact in Tomas is quite large, right? Like Bastion, we said you'd play in Tauren, and he is valuable. He does provide, some good utility. Yep. But the impact Fazil can have, like, you got to play around that ridiculous charge range. He can just remove a model from the table on EP turn relatively consistently. So I definitely would put him in the high A tier.
Yep. I 100% agree with you. So, well, who's next, Wonky?
All right, so Gendris. So this one's gonna hurt a bit.
Yeah, this is gonna hurt
because that's kind of where I've got her, middle of B tier.
So middle of B tier. So that is between Ashel and Barney.
And Barney. So I think
talk to me about this. I want to know.
Okay, she does a lot of stuff, which is good.
Uh-huh.
You'll probably take her most of the time in Gruul. I've seen her not taken a couple of times. I've seen some people take Lori Bella instead of her. I've seen people level her for, getting Terra quickly, but I feel like in Gruul that's a bit detrimental. I don't think you're ever going to see her outside Gruul again. With the 2 hex change, it just doesn't seem there's much value. Wild Growth is very strong, but can be fate heavy, and depending on board position. So right. I think she's good. I probably might rate her a little bit higher. But like Ashel, you might actually kind of see on occasion outside of one of their gods. Like you want the AoE pin. Right. Which I think is strong. Like I think she's pretty close to Ashel. I think her floor is probably a bit better, and she can do a bit of everything. So maybe I might move her ahead of Ashel, but I don't think she's going to extend into the A tier. I just don't think that's you're never going to see her out of God. You're only really going to see her in God, and her avatar bonus is a little bit, It's nice kind of when it can work, but I don't know. I've been a little bit down on her. I still take her because the big thing for me is some of the turn 1 stuff she can hand out because of Find a Path. So I don't know. Maybe I would put her ahead of Ashel just because of that, you're still going to see her a lot in God. And I don't think Ashel you're always going to see, but I don't think she definitely kind of quite hits that same level of the A tier.
I mean, that's fair. Now, this is where I'm going to make a challenge on you. If she's better than Ashel, do you really think you're going to see Barney or Ashel less than her?
So I think
realistically,
so that's a little bit more difficult because Gruul is the least played god.
Sure.
And Tauren and Tomas. Well, Tomas is pretty highly played. Tauren's been climbing a lot. So I think because of that, you might see Ashel more. I don't think you're seeing that much Barney though maybe with the Brewellen change. We haven't seen how it shakes out with the new Brewellen change.
Yeah, we haven't seen how it shakes out.
But historically, the percentage of Gruul warbands that play her is higher than I think the percentage of Barney in his god or Ashel and Ashel's. But again, Gruul's been weird. The popularity of it has been quite a bit lower than other gods, at least recently. We'll see. I think there's been, Guns played them. I'm starting to do a bit more of the online leagues, which should, pump up the numbers a little bit. But
nope, that's fair. Like I said, I was just curious as to your thoughts on that because I mean, it's one of those things that Barney we mentioned earlier is a piece that you just kind of don't feel bad grabbing him in general.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I'm thinking out of God or even honestly in God at Gruul, sometimes there are points where I don't look at Gendris myself, but I'm
Yeah.
also not a main Gruul player, right? So
Yeah.
like this is where I'm coming at it from of I know I'm not a main Gruul player, so I'm posing the question to a main Gruul player. So, all right. So you, top of the beer tier so far. I
Top of
like
the
it.
B tier. I think that seems pretty good. She can be impactful at times, but and maybe it's because sometimes she just isn't the most exciting because she's backup soul gazing or kind of
Sure.
supporting stuff, but she just seems okay.
Nope, that's
All
perfectly
right.
fine.
So next up is Haxa. So Haxa's newer to the V2 only folks. Um, he was thought of as being very overpowered by certain folks. Um, I think Haxa's good. I think his kit can definitely be annoying.
Yep.
But I don't think are we. I haven't seen like a massive amount of Haxa.
Mm-mm.
He does feel like he fits in very well in the Ista healing brick.
Yep.
I've seen him, I think, in like one Tauren warband. But yeah, I haven't seen him kind of lighting the world up like some people claimed. I think Equilibrium's still one of the best fate abilities in the game.
Yeah.
I think it's just very efficient, right? You deal 3 to 5 damage, you heal 3 to 5 damage, and it's true damage, which is also good.
Yeah.
Um,
Look, I mean, realistically, talking about it right, we see him in Ista a bit more. I tend to actually see him a little bit more in Gruul, even.
oh, I have
Uh,
not seen that.
I've it's my local meta. It's
Oh,
where
okay.
people are learning, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think
um,
I think he has some value there. Like the healing,
I
like
yeah,
Gruul likes the healing. The true damage is nice.
yeah,
You can run some weird like well, not weird, but like you can run like a Haxa Zyvera pair, where
yep,
like she cuts someone for 5 true damage. Haxa equilibriums them to then heal Zyvera. Like you're doing a lot of damage without rolling dice, and I
yep,
think that can be very intriguing.
yeah. But realistically, let's be real. The main place that we see Haxa, in my opinion, that I've seen is Ista still,
Mm-hmm.
even with the online leagues, right?
Yep.
And like you said, he's not lighting the world on fire. Um, he has some support that he does, and he does it very, very well. But he's not something that like he's not the first immediate piece
No.
I grab for. So I mean, me personally, as much as I like Hoxa, and you know how much I like Hoxa, um, I I would say yeah, he's either a mid B tier or even at the top end of the C. Like he fits a
Yeah.
niche very, very well, and that's what he does. But that's it.
Yeah, I think to me, he kind of falls in the middle B tier. I think he's a bit better than Barney. I think you can more typically get some value from him. I know you can set up some of the voodoo idol stuff and be pretty obnoxious. He just feels pretty good. I don't think he ever feels like, man, I let my opponent Toxa through, like life's terrible. I think he's just good. He's solid. He's got some interesting rules: the idols, the healing, and the voodoo. The resistant one is
Yeah.
good. I think Shatter is very, very strong once you get to level 3, but you got to level him to 3.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's just kind of. I think he, to me, feels pretty well balanced.
Yeah.
And
I
he's
think
in
he
Tauren,
is
like all things should be, right? With Equilibrium.
right. Sure. I don't know if I would say he's better than Barney personally. I think I
Okay.
think he requires more investment. I think Barney's better off the
Okay.
just off the get go.
All right.
Um,
I can get behind that. It's
it
little dwarf bias there.
well, it's for me. It's not even dwarf bias. It's also taking into account effigy powers and such. I think
Okay.
Barney utilizes the Bruellen one especially better.
Okay.
And they both get the Ista one, so they both get to utilize that one the same amount, right?
Yeah.
Um, so just a that's just my quick thoughts
Yeah.
out of the get go there. Um, but yeah, so that's Hoxa for us. So then after Hoxa, we are going to have Isabel.
I'll do us all a favor.
Just do us all a favor and drop her at the very top of the S
Yeah,
tier.
I am fairly confident at the moment that Isabel is probably the strongest hero in the game. Um,
I I wish I could disagree with you, but I really can't
yeah,
because it does not matter what god you play. Well, okay. It does, because if you're playing Fazil in Tomas and such, you're probably not grabbing her. But if you're
yeah,
playing any other god, I think you look at her at a
yeah.
bare minimum.
We were seeing her a bunch in Bruellen for a while. I think she is so strong in her god in Ista. You'll never see an Ista warband without her. Like, it's not even a thought. Like, she is so good. She's flexible on what you can do with her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's weird is I never feel like I have to ban her usually when I see her in a warband. Like,
That's
she
because you don't
doesn't.
play Tomas.
No, well, yeah. No, I do. I do. I actually play Tomas in person quite a bit. When I'm feeling like not playing Gruul, I do actually. Tomas tends to be what I play. I think if you're playing Tomas, you have to ban her, right? Because you're probably running at least 2 undead demons.
Well, you're probably running,
Probably.
as I say, undead or demons or both.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But yeah, I think like her level 2 and level 3 on Holy Side are strong. Her level 2 is very strong in Retribution. I think level 3 is a little dicey, but it's not an action point to do the knockdown.
yep,
Really good stat line. I think Agi 4 Res 1 for a non-tank is really good.
yep,
They upped her healing now to not have to be adjacent for lay on hands, which I think was a huge buff to her, like
yep.
positioning wise. Her avatar bonus is deceptively good. Like being always nimble, always having fly, just lets you get out of any kind of shenanigans or bullshit. If you get the curse blade on her, she goes kind of bananas.
Nuts.
Or the demon blade, sorry, from
Yeah,
Dorg. Yeah, I don't. To me, she still feels like one of the strongest heroes in the game. But I think what is interesting is she's
sure.
never a hero I feel like I have to ban. And I think that is a bit of a, one of the sentiments I think is kind of good with regards to balance. But I think if you're playing Ista, you are going to see Isabel.
Yeah,
We've seen her in other spots. She's fallen off a little bit. Like I said, we were seeing her a bunch in Bruellen. I've seen her. I used to run her in essentially what was a Gruul warband in V1 a lot. I haven't really tried her. I think I did a little bit in early V2 days running her in Gruul because she's got all the condition removal and she's, again, just good. But she's also in a bit of that competitive slot of like Lori Bella and Gendris.
yep.
So I think she probably is, to me, feels like one of the best heroes in the game.
I don't disagree with you. I think because of the fact she has the dual level up path that you get to choose situationally, she's going to be able to fill that role that you really need one way or another. And I think she's a model that if you don't look at her when you're building your warband, realistically, you probably are building Tomas at that point, and that
Or
makes sense.
Torin. Torin
Or
kind of runs a
Torn.
lot of demons, so
Yeah, Torn does run a lot of demons, so you're probably running one of those two. But
yeah.
otherwise, I think you kind of look at her still.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with the S tier.
All right.
All right.
Next
Who's
up
next?
is Astariel. So she got nerfed a bit
Yes, she did.
coming into patch 2.3. One of the nerfs was not the biggest, right? So the Blaze move went from 3 hexes to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be hyper aggressive with it. And then her big change is that when she conflagrates, the burn falls off at the end of the activation, so she can't conflagrate and then keep that burn going to do additional damage. She still has the inherent armor shred, which I think
Right.
is a very powerful part of her kit. She doesn't need babysitting because she has Blaze, so she doesn't have to take parting blows. No melee weapon, which is a little bit of a knock on her. But the automatic armor pierce in her mobility with dash. She's agility 5. She's somehow soul harvest 3. In case you really want to get cheeky with the soul harvest with her.
Yep.
She applies fire, which is very good anti-healing. She's long probably felt like one of the best range damage dealers.
Mm-hmm.
I think she still is.
I think she
One
is
of the
as
best
well.
range damage dealers. I personally put her. I think I might put Alandir slightly above her at the moment. But to me, that's a very close
Yeah,
comparison. I think Alandir now is slightly better. I think the range is a bigger deal. But the base armor shred's kind of. I don't. To me, Alandir and Astariel are very, very close.
yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to what you're trying to get out of them, right? Alandir's not going to be the character who is going to dish out a ton of damage against armored characters, but
Yeah.
against those characters who don't have the res, he's going to dish out a massive amount of damage and then be able to go, cool, you're not healing it.
Yep.
Whereas Istariel, on the other hand, she's going to be good into those armored characters, and she's got that burst damage, right? That you see with the conflagrate and such.
Yeah.
I am interested to see how she plays with the conflagration change now, especially into like Minotaurs.
Yeah, because
Um,
yeah, it's the you don't get to leave that fire on like you would like to for the anti
uh-huh.
healing.
So that's where it's one of those things of I like the new choice with that of it's counterplay that you have to decide, is it more important to leave the fire on,
Yeah,
or is it
or
more important to just burn
get
them
the
down?
damage right away.
Yep. So, but yeah, I definitely think that I would agree with you 100% that she and Alandir are like they're neck and neck in my opinion
Yeah.
for where they place on this. But I think based on what we've talked about, I like her better, but I would definitely say that she places, I think, just under Alandir,
Yeah.
just because he has the ability to hit multiple people with fire and set that up. So,
All right.
all right.
Okay, so let's do a little recap before we go for
Yep.
those listening to the audio only version. So right now, in order, our S tier is Isabel, Drogoth, and Brock. Our A tier is Fazil, Donragar, Alandir, Astariel, Bastion. Our B tier is Gendris, Ashel, Barney, Haxa. Our C tier is Arya and Abathas, and dumpster tier is Cradle. All right.
All right.
Next up is a model I know you're a fan of, and
Very
that
much
is
so.
Kane.
Yes. Look, Kane is one of those models that when I am playing in Tomas, he's a guarantee I look at. More than likely, I bring him simply because with the Blood Pact plus Hunter's Knife plus Tomas Warband bonus, right? He's probably next to Brock level of monster hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But his major downside is he gets no extra swings, none of that stuff. He has to cut himself or cut somebody nearby. And really where he starts to shine, in my opinion, is like in the late game. Okay. When you can start getting people that are under their under half health, so he gets blood sent. So you can really start applying mortal wounds with the combat maneuvers. And even as he gets his levels up with, temporal shift, unerring accuracy, or soothe. So as much as I love Kane, I will say that I don't think he's higher than a B-class hero at most. Simply because, like, even when I'm playing Krognar, he's not one of the first heroes I look to grab. So I think he fits a niche well in being able to apply some of that anti-healing where you want it. He's got the ability to go hunting where you want him, but he does have both range and magic. And so it's one of those things that I think he's a B-class hero.
I am going to
Of course you are. Of course.
So, Kane, I've always really enjoyed his rule set. I think Mortal Wounds, I mean, it is the best anti-healing in the game. Because you can't get rid of it with Fate like you can with Fire. You can't remove it. Basically, you can't remove it at all because you can't remove combat maneuver stuff with even Nullify and Cradles. Right. I forget what it is.
Shadow Cleanse.
I used to really value his ability to kill monsters in Tomas without a problem. However, my brother tends to play him in Kragnar, and without the free healing, it feels really lackluster
Sure.
to do the cut. He does have soothe, but like, okay, then you're soothing and not mortal wounding. You really got to get the 2S to do it. You're only healing for 2, because you're gonna probably want to cut for more. Agi 4 isn't bad. Res 0. I don't know. I've just been down on him the more I've seen him, and I don't see him a huge amount. Like, he's pretty rarely taken, it feels like. I don't think if I was making Kragnar, I would put Kane in a list. I think if I'm playing Tomas, there's a lot of other stuff that kind of bumps him out. Unless I really felt like I really needed a dedicated jungler. But they have some pretty good damage pieces already that I kind of feel like he doesn't seem as necessary in Tomas.
Okay.
But there are some maps he probably feels pretty good. But I think I would put him at top of C, bottom of B. And like, I don't think I'd ever, like, unless you really needed anti-healing in your war, like, if Ista became the big boogeyman everyone thought they were going to be, because it feels like we all thought they were going to be, and then they didn't really become the big boogeyman that everyone thought was going to happen, unless that's still coming.
Don't worry, it's still coming.
And you really needed the anti-healing, then I feel like he would rise up just because of mortal wounds.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of low on him.
I mean, that's fair. Like I said, to me, I wouldn't put him. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have put him like above, Barney or Hoxa. I think he's in the low B, and so it makes sense that you say top end to C. So we'll leave him there for now.
Okay.
I'm not gonna try to rotate your mind on that one.
Yeah, and like I said, I would like to say that, like, I think, heroes in any of these tiers are definitely very playable, right? Like,
yes.
Cradle, clearly there's stuff.
I mean, we've watched Guns and Sir Sneezy play Cradle to great effect, and they've been fantastic with them. So
it's kind of like, how well are they, like, how often are they good, right? And I think Kane, I don't know, he's just, the more I've seen him lately, the more I think he's a bit lackluster. And it's not that his kit's bad, it's just sometimes he's just a bit overshadowed by other stuff.
Sure.
And I think that's just what happens. All right. Next up is Kogan.
I hope we don't offend Sonny with this one.
Yeah. So being a Minotaur, but he's not in Gruul. I haven't actually played Kogan in quite a bit. He did get nerfed in 2.2. Right? Mm-hmm. His level 2 no longer gives him +1 RNG, just gives him +1 reach on the blunderbuss, which is still very strong.
Right.
Still probably one of the highest floor characters in the game. Battle Cry is insane value. The knockdown on the gun's good. The built-in armor pierce is good. I quite like him. I feel like he's very common in Kragnar. Bruellen, I think actually he got better with the new EP. I think the more damage on the charge with unerring accuracy that gives you another reroll. You can do some stuff where you charge, you push off, you shoot with the gun, for that big charge attack.
Sure.
He is level hungry. I think getting the reach 3 to reach 4 on the gun's kind of a big deal. Yeah, I think he's solid. What are your thoughts, Fabius?
I mean, look, the man's got a solid kit. I can't argue with that. And if you play him well with the Reach 4 and even with Buckshot, the man can do some massive amounts of work and damage, but I think he fits a very niche role.
Okay.
And that's his thing. So I definitely would not put him personally higher than a B.
Okay.
And I know that's going to make Sonny lose his gourd, because I'm sure Sonny was like, S-class! But I really don't think that he's realistically higher than a B.
I think I might agree, but I would put him probably towards the top end of B. I think he is very, very strong. I actually think he might be interesting out of God a bit, and people haven't done that much with him.
Yep.
Part of that too, right? There's a lot of, In God tends to have pretty good damage options.
Hmm.
But I think there's some good values there. I think he's very, very strong in Krognar. Being able to EP into aiming range of a juicy target
Yeah.
is really good. The surprise Kogan.
Yep.
I know he is a little level hungry, which I think is probably my biggest knock on him, because that can kind of limit
I I
your
think he's
warband a
got
little
two
bit.
big knocks, and I think level hungry is one. The
Yeah.
second one is he's fate hungry.
I don't necessarily agree. I think he is a good spot to put Fate if you know you're making multiple attacks. Because it lets you pick, and I think being able to pick is really strong. The dicey reroll. But I think you don't have to make him be Fate hungry, but he definitely is level and he wants Heartseeker. Like those are two things that if
It's
you want to get
it's
more value out of him, you need to do that.
yeah, it's just one of those things that I think if you're talking about his kit and how good it is as a whole, we talk about the blunderbuss, right?
Yep.
And when the blunderbuss dice rolls don't work your way and you don't have the fate to have battle cry active,
Mm-hmm.
he can feel really bad.
Yeah, I mean the big thing with the blunderbuss though is like even a glance is like a solid for a lot of the other range characters, and he's got the armor pierce, so like even if your dice aren't bananas with him, like he's doing probably pretty good damage, assuming you're not like I'm rolling one dice because I'm shooting a triple engaged whatever. Like, okay, well then because I think even with a couple of dice and then battle cry makes like okay, I'm shooting with 3 dice like 2 to 3 times. Battlecry makes it really consistent to at least be soliding.
Correct, but that's what I
So
mean is you need that fate to do that.
yeah,
So
that's true. Then at that point he has Fate Hungry, so
yeah,
I think it's pretty good in the B slot.
yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's
so.
I think top of B, maybe low A, but I don't think even every Krognar warband's bringing them. So if, one of the metrics here is how often he's being taken, even in God. Like I don't see him in every Bellin warband. I don't see him in every Krognar warband.
Correct.
I was running an Ista warband with him that was kind of fun, where it had like all of the knockdown,
Right.
and I think he works well into that very grindy kind of game Ista will want to play.
Mhm.
So, anyways,
I
yeah, I
can see
think
that.
IB is pretty good.
All right. So next up we have Cruel.
So, funnily enough, this is our first Soul Gazer.
Yep.
Probably. I mean, I know he's going right to the top for me, to be honest.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna disagree with you that he's probably the S tier of soul gazers, in my opinion, as a
Yeah.
whole. And let's be real, it's perfectly honestly, it's because of his kit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The dude gets extra resin damage on his cudgel when he has a soul. He doesn't lose the soul when or he doesn't lose one of the souls when he dies. He just transfers it to somebody within 3 hexes.
Yep.
And obviously he has probably the best ability in the game, would be my opinion. Or maybe it's not the best anymore, but it used to be.
Yeah,
It's
Bloodlust.
one of the best abilities, which is Bloodlust, and being able to make it so one of your friendly models can charge for one less action,
Mm-hmm.
that's huge, especially in a game of action economy.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is, there was actually some discussion about today, and some people were saying, well, you're not gaining actions, which is true, but you're right. You have a limited number of actions, and you're shifting that action to a more valuable person, right? Target. So, like, think of the standard stuff in, we'll say, Bruellen with Zonia. So
Hmm.
giving Zonia a third attack means so first she can walk, charge, get her charge attack, and then get a follow-up attack, which makes her threat range obnoxiously far.
Yep.
Or if the thing is in charge range, she's able to charge and attack 3 times.
Yep.
I don't think there's many models in the game that will probably live a Zonia charge with 3 attacks. We'll say even if you whiff one and not crit, right? So say you crit solid, Okay, so that's 13 damage, and then you're doing 2d6 damage on top of that. Obviously,
Yeah.
factoring in res can make that a little bit different, but I mean, even against a res 2 like Marcus,
Yep.
right? You're doing 3, 6, and we'll say she's solids, so you do 7. That puts him to 8. 2d6 then as a pretty reasonable chance, needing an 8 to kill.
And even if she
Um,
doesn't kill, I mean, she leaves him probably
on a couple.
extremely low.
Yeah, so and or you look at a Thorgar that can crit for 6, and you get the enrage him, and he's more likely to crit. And again, if you crit solid, we'll assume
Hmm.
one of the times your dice fails, right? He's doing 16 points of damage against a res 0 target,
Yep.
versus 12, and that amount of a jump changes the math from something living to something dead in a single
Yep.
activation,
Yep.
instead of allowing you to do something in between, or save it, or heal it, or move it, or whatever.
Yep.
Um,
Well, and also with Bloodlust in combination with the new Bruellen effigy power,
mm-hmm.
this is like, to me, that is fucking nuts, because now you get the +2 damage on that charge. You're getting +1 melee. You're getting unerring accuracy.
Yeah.
That's a huge swing.
Yep.
So, and then, the one thing we also didn't mention on him is his level 2. Cruel's 9 times out of 10 going to get a level in a game.
Yeah.
And just being able to make somebody have a -2 to their soul harvest,
Mm-hmm.
that can be detrimental massively to
Yeah.
another soul gazer.
Yeah, on any kind of game where you're fighting around the soul pit, Cruel increases. And you can soul strip, right? So it got
Right.
nerfed a bit, I think in 2.2. It
Yeah.
became an action as well, so he can't soul strip and gaze that soul right away, which I think was a very good change. And that's also when Bloodlust got toned down a bit. But yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I think he is the best soul gazer. You can put him in, I think, in any warband,
Yep.
and feel very good taking him. I don't. I mean, to me, I don't know. Like, he might be ahead of Isabel, just because you'll take him, and literally, I think any warband will want to take him. To be honest, I mean, maybe not Tauren, because Tauren, I feel like you're less melee centric.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Do you put him? Do you think you put him above Isabel?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I
so
I
we'll
think
leave him.
I think he's right underneath her just because of the other
Alright.
utilities she brings. So, all right. Well, then let's move into the next model after Cruel, which this is one of your favorites.
Uh-huh.
Who is it?
Loribella. So Loribella's next up. I think from the perspective of her take rate, she might be a little bit lower, but her power level still feels very strong.
Okay.
I'm actually going to put her on the back end of A tier. I think the grenade nerf. Yeah. I think the grenade nerf hurt her a bit. I actually probably looked for grenade plays, probably a bit to the detriment of some of the other stuff she can do. But her gun has the possibility to just go bananas. Elixir can heal for a ridiculous amount depending on board position. I know when I'm playing Gruul, very commonly I will look at Loribella quite a bit. I've actually been trying to force myself not to play Loribella lately. And I feel like I have to force myself. I love her in Ista quite a bit as well. I know when I look at Ista warbands, I very commonly want Loribella as well. She tends to just do a bit of everything for me. She can soul gaze at Soul Harvest 4. Grenade plays were very insane at Reach 4. At Reach 3, she's got to be a bit more exposed. It feels like that one hex hurt a lot more than I expected a one hex nerf to be. So yeah, I would put her low A because I feel like the things that she can do can go bananas. But from a take rate perspective, we're not seeing her as much as I would kind of expect. But I think she's got a lot of power in her kit still.
Yeah, I do think she has a lot of power in her kit. I know, she's one I'm always torn on, right? I would like to say she's an A tier, but I think to me she's probably high B's. personally, and that's just because her elixir is good, but it's only really great to dwarfs and minotaurs.
I mean, or if she has levels. I think
Well,
that's because the base
levels
one.
levels will help,
Yeah.
definitely. Not gonna
Yeah.
not gonna discount that, but it's one of those things that a lot of the times, like, and you remember, I'm a V1 vet. I've seen her gun go off from V1.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen her gun go off in V2, but there's a lot of investment that it takes to get her to go off like that with spring loaded. And I just don't think that most people put that investment in for her.
I can
They
tell
take her
you.
for the grenade, I
I
think.
mean, I can tell you that I never put investment in the gun, and then it just sometimes happens. Like, if you like, you can put investment in the gun to try and make it a thing, and I actually think there is value in doing that if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes it just goes bananas when it goes bananas, and you're kind of like pulling the slot machine lever,
Sure.
and when it hits, it goes insane. Now, I mean,
But that to me is why I wouldn't put her as an A hero. I would put her as a
yeah,
B.
but you're not bringing her for the only the Gatling gun, right? It's the combination of all the things here. We're like all of a game where yeah, the Gatling gun goes nuts, or Elixir heals a shit ton, or whatever. Like I think it's kind of the combinations of it. I think Grenade's still one of the stronger Fate abilities in the game. I think the reach hurt it quite a bit, but the ability to move opposing models outside of activation is such a big deal. That
I'm not disagreeing. I just don't think she's also taken outside of God that often either. So that's why I
I
would
think
put her
that's
in the B.
probably the biggest knock. Is yeah, she probably won't be taken out of God, but I guess it's. I think the kit outweighs that a little bit in her case, but we can move her to B if you feel better. We'll put her at the top of B tier then.
All right. All righty. So who do we have next?
All right, so we got Lug Drug up next.
All
He has
right.
definitely grown in popularity a lot lately.
Yeah, he definitely
Um,
has.
he feels pretty good in his two gods of Krognar and Bruellen.
Yep.
I think the Bruellen change feels pretty good for him.
Yeah.
The additional damage on the attack feels pretty good. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's weird to me because like it feels like tank stuff kind of comes and goes. Like,
It does.
we were taking Donragar all the time, everywhere. And then what's interesting is like we had a time where like Marcus was that, and then we actually like a time where I think Thrommel was taking an insane amount.
Mm-hmm.
So it always feels like the tank stuff kind of comes in waves.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that the tank stuff comes in waves. Um, I look, we've talked about this before, and my personal opinion on the matter is that the two best tanks in the game, in my opinion, are Donragar and Lugdrug.
Okay.
And they are the two best tanks in the game for two very different reasons, right? Um, Donragar gets the ability to look at you and say, that one attack that you really needed to hit and do a lot, no, it's coming to me, right? Whereas Lugdrug gets that ward to be able to go, cool, I'm going to go ahead and, oh, look, you did a glance for two, give them two res. Ignore it. Oh, look, I'm going to take that hit instead. So he has that little bit, but his is, it's in a different place because he's got to be adjacent to them. So it's that whole idea of like, Donnie's really good at being able to protect everybody for one hit. Lugdrug is, I can protect this one person.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Lugdrug's kit enhances that one person. So it's one of those things like when you start thinking about it, he is taken primarily like if you look at a Krognar warband, 9 times out of 10, as far as I know, he's in there.
Yeah.
If you look at a Bruellen warband, usually there's a Lugdrug in there, right? And if we're talking about a model being able to use their effigy power to actually benefit them, Lugdrug hits both those. Which granted, the Krognar effigy power is I'm going to reposition.
Mm-hmm.
But he still likes that because that can reposition him to his ward if he gets away from them. So it's one of those things that I think I don't know where you feel on this one, but even at his just base level 1 kit, like he feels good, and you can
Yeah.
bring him outside of God and he still feels good.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd probably put him. I'd probably put him here in the A. So I think
Yeah.
he's. You're gonna probably take him pretty frequently in God. You're gonna take him out of God on occasion. His kit's pretty good. The
Mm-hmm.
energy tokens are pretty good.
Yep.
Um, and then yeah, if you give him some focus and give him some levels, he can definitely turn his ward very dangerous with his level 2 and level 3. Yeah, I think he's like middle to bottom of A tier. He is probably the second best tank.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think Skull's creeping up a lot on
I
that front.
Yes,
But
Skull is definitely creeping up there, and I can't wait to get to him.
all right, so who's next?
So next we have Maltique. She is very interestingly, every god can take her, and she's in God
Yep.
for all of them. Realistically, there's not really a god like an effigy power that she doesn't like. That's one of the things I actually really like about her being in every god is she likes all of them. Now, her being, she's got the reach 5, she's got good damage, and she's got the cerebral pressure. So the more she hits a target, the more damage she's gonna do. Like I've watched her just obliterate characters like Sky, who, let's be real, Sky can be a troublesome character to get rid of because he is edgy 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because she gets to attack their soul harvest value instead, that actually makes him only a 4, so she gets to throw more dice. She is item dependent, and I do feel that obviously one of her other big downsides is she has no melee weapon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you can engage her and keep her engaged, it definitely can feel like she can get blasted really easy or entangled in something that she doesn't want to be there. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I was starting to have some luck with her in Gruul as a good ranged option. I think her ability at level 1 to just deal true damage with her attacks for a fate is really strong.
It is.
With the pressure, cerebral pressure thing, like she ended up doing quite a bit of damage. She gets to shoot 3 times. I think the no melee weapon does really suck. However, what is kind of nice is that because she has steady, you don't have to worry about the triple J knockdown,
It's true.
theoretically there. So that's kind of nice. And then she can always just kind of repair herself after. So
Mhm.
like she could walk, repair, and then shoot. She also is one of the only other models that brings pin on a combat maneuver.
True.
She's always been one I've wanted to play a bit more. And actually, if I wasn't playing around with, so I was doing Alandir originally, for the team event, and I was doing that because I needed some anti-healing tech, which actually I think she might have been fine in the same role because I kind of wanted an anti-healing tech for Ista, and Ista because all the healing they have and the durability. But most stuff in Ista tends to have pretty good soul harvest values, so it does kind of hurt her a bit into that matchup. But
Hmm.
I think with like Tomas, where you can get multiple like Res 2 models, she can be pretty painful. The problem is, one of those models you want to shoot into is Mazuzi,
Hmm.
who at, Soul Harvest 6, she's only getting 1 die, maybe 2. So that does kind of hurt that ability. And
Hmm.
some of the other stuff she wants to shoot with ignoring, doing true damage is a lot of, Soul Harvest 4 models.
Right.
So, if she's just getting 4 dice, you're not probably critting as often. But she can definitely prey on, those low soul harvest damage dealers.
Yep.
And then, you can pin them, which is nice. You can also stun if she rolls a J. And she can do quite a bit of damage to them. So I quite like her. The problem is, I don't think she fits in a lot of lists.
Hmm.
I actually would probably put her in C. Oh, I think I might put her above Kane. I don't know. I think I actually might put Kane above her. I think Kane can fit in a bit more lists.
Hmm.
And his kit can definitely provide a lot more value. I think Maltique is going to feel really hot or cold when you play her.
Yes.
With not having the melee weapon. Depending on the soul harvest values of your opponent, like I said, if you're playing, that kind of Ista brick, Isabel's a 5, Marcus is a 4. Yes, Dawnregard is a 3, and the true damage is a big deal. But,
a lot of their
Brock's
models
a
are
3.
4 or higher.
Brock's a 3 for some reason still. Gotta throw that in there.
Yep.
Lori Bella's a 4, Hoxa's a 4.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff's a bit higher, so I think she loses a little bit because of that. But I think she's got a spot. I think she definitely can fill your range position, especially if you can work around the soul harvest stuff. And I think the being at level 1 able to do true damage is kind of a big deal because it gets around the anti-armor shred stuff.
Definitely agree with you. I think the one thing I want to point out here with her is the fact that, again, that we talked about, she fits, counts as a champion for every god.
Yeah.
And yet she's fitting into that C tier where it's like a very specific niche, and she's not going to show up in every list. And I actually think that's one of the best balancing things with her as a model is that, yes, you can take her in everything, but she doesn't fit into everything.
Yeah.
So.
All
right.
Next up is Marcus.
Number 3 tank.
Number 3 tank. Yeah, it's
all right.
Maybe 4 now, but
yeah, maybe 4 now. But I just meant number 3 in the.
Oh, the third tank we've gotten to.
Yeah, gotcha. Third tank we've got. All right. So let's talk about Marcus as a whole. Obviously, he fits. Honestly, he fits well in Ista, where he is accompanied, or where he is a champion of. He fits decently into Tomas, but he really doesn't make use of the effigy power.
He does
the
now.
way that it was.
Yeah, with the new 2.3 one. Yeah, being able to get the wall out, I think, is pretty nice.
Right. I was going to say, being able to spend a Blessing of Tomas token to get the wall out, I think is a fantastic. I think that's a fantastic change for Marcus, so he finds a little bit of use in the Tomas effigy power. The fact that he has both sword and shield for 2 weapon options, has the ability to knock down as a single maneuver. He's immune to freeze, and can give. You and I have seen it multiple times where he likes to give that protective stance to a lot of models that he is with because they can make use of it and go from res 1 to res 2 a lot of the times. I think Marcus has just got a good, solid, strong kit. And he's one of the models that, to me, like when I first started playing this game, I looked at him constantly. He was constantly on my radar. I think he's a little less on my radar now as we're starting to see some of the other, defenders get stuff, and I'm starting to get a little more comfortable with some of my play style. So me personally, I rank Marcus in like the B slot. He is just a good, solid all-around defender that can fit most anywhere, but I think he's got a better placement in like the 2 gods he's got.
Yeah, I think he definitely probably can fit in any warband that has a little bit of res 1, because I think the protective stance helps a lot. He is the best offensive, not offensive by damage, but like the best setup tank.
Yep.
I think the wall can be good now because you can't attack across it for protecting models. He's good stat line at Agi 4 res 2. I think he's pretty good. I put him under Lori. I think Lori has a stronger kit overall than Marcus. Even though Marcus you might see a little bit more, but he has definitely dropped down quite a bit, it feels like, from where he was. And I mean, he's still pretty good. You're still going to see him in God quite a bit. I know Ista, you'll see him a lot. Tomas, I mean, I like to take him in Tomas, but I think people have moved on to Sky a bit more lately in Tomas. He fits not bad in other places as well. I know for a while I ran him in Gruul for a bit and then switched over to Lug Drugs. They didn't really need the knockdown as much. And adding the 1 res when you depending on the res of your other stuff, it just didn't feel as great. So
that's fair.
All right. Who's next?
All right. Up next, we have Masuzi. And, I got to say, man, Masuzi, especially pre-patch patch 2.3,
Yep.
was definitely he's one of those guys that if you were playing Tomas or Torin, if you didn't have Masuzi in your list, I kind of wanted to reach out and smack you upside the head and go, what are you doing? The fact that he brings immunity to poison, he's got Pathfinder. Obviously, as I said, he's a Soul Gazer. His Acid Potion range attack is true damage. He's got Leech. He's just got a kit that screams, I'm here to do as much as I can.
Yeah.
Because even when you get into, his active abilities, he's got the ability to decay somebody for lowering agi or lowering movement. And then as he levels up, he can take Pain Reflector. He can bump a stat.
Yeah.
And if you really want to get cheeky with it because you're doing whatever, he's got the ability to use Devour, right?
Yep.
And so I think personally, I want to say he's at least an A tier, if not an S.
Yeah.
I think Cruel is definitely a better gazer than he is.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I think they're a little bit close in that. The difference I think in the S is you might not see him out of God. I know someone was running him in Gruul for a while. I think honestly you could probably put him basically anywhere. The only one maybe wouldn't be like Krognar. Well, no, even Krognar.
I mean,
like,
he would enjoy the one action effigy recall.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't hate that. Like, he can give some poison to Rakir. He's got pretty good damage output, especially against targets that can be difficult too because Acid Potion is doing true damage. He's immune to poison, which turns off, the Rakir burst and some of that annoyance. He's Leech 1, he's Pathfinder. He just does a lot of shit. Decay, I didn't think the one action point addition to Decay was going to be a big deal until I started seeing some games with him, and it definitely were like, hey, I could just throw out a Fate and Decay someone like after I've moved shot twice or charged in, decayed and then got another attack. Now that you're, -2 agi or whatever. So I think he's still very strong. He has some very powerful level up options. Pain Reflector is a very strong Fate ability, especially, in Tomas where you make him, res 2 and he's got Leech 1 and then he's also Tomas so he can heal when he kills. But he's definitely a strong gazer. We've seen him a fair amount outside of God as well. I think that's not happening quite as much at the moment, but his kit's very strong. And like you said, if you're playing Tomas or Tauren, he would be very quick for me to add, and I ban him a shit ton. I mean,
yep.
If I see him in Tomas, there's a lot of time where I'm banning him because he's the single gazer, or I've got tools for other stuff. So yeah, I think he's bottom of the S tier, just because you're not quite seeing him everywhere like you were, and I think Drogoth, I mean, especially Brock, you're kind of still seeing everywhere. So.
Yep.
All right. Next up we have
Naias. All right, so we are jumping from one Soul Gazer right into the next. So I don't know how you feel about Naias as a whole. I like the kit that she brings to the table, being a melee 7 Soul Gazer. It's not something you see that often.
Mm-hmm.
And she's immune to poison, so she definitely, again, can knock down some of that Rakir play, things like that. But she also enables Rakir play for her team, right, in Krognar, with the Poison Cloud combat maneuver. But she also has that heal, and then the ability to even make it so active abilities cost an extra fate.
No, they can't execute them if they have.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. They can't activate them. So, like, being able to shut that stuff down is pretty good. But you don't. The one thing is you don't really see her a ton outside of her gods, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was playing her a bit in Tomas to try and enable some Fazil, Pestilence, and Rakir because for some reason her combat maneuver can poison 2 models.
Right. But
I think that's very strong.
Big, it's that big thing she's swinging around. It just causes a gas cloud.
I think she's just a bit overshadowed by some other gazers that feel like they just fit their gods a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I would really particularly take her in Tauren. Because I think Masuzi and her kind of feel like they fit a little bit the same. Like, I'm a soul gazer that poisons, right?
Yeah.
Like, Nias does bring pretty good healing with Rejuvenate, especially for things with souls on them, which is very valuable. She's also Edgy 5, where Mizuzi is Edgy 3, Res 1. But I've been playing her with Tomas and I've enjoyed her, but I've definitely had games where she feels a little lackluster. I'm actually going to put her. I would put her, I think, after Kane. I would put her around Kane in the C tier. I think that's pretty much where I'd like to put her. I don't think like she doesn't see a whole lot of play even in her gods. She doesn't have a bad kit, but it just doesn't seem. She seems overshadowed by some of the other soul gazing options, I guess is the best way to describe it.
100% agree with that. So.
All right, and we'll move on.
All righty. So with that, we have Nephany coming up. So obviously Nephany is a new release. And let's see, she saw her release in, was it June? Or was she...
I think May.
May. No, she was May because it was May.
Yeah, Zaffin.
They did.
Zaffin was June. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did May the Force with the the Taser Gun chick. So she is in Ista and Tomas with her laser blades. Let's be real. This model is a model who has like every rule that the kitchen sink can throw at it.
Yeah.
With dash, dual wield, fly, nimble, pathfinder. She can curse people with her combat maneuver. She has a fate ability that once they're cursed, she gets to do true damage with it, right?
Yep.
And she hits everybody adjacent to her with it. Once she gets a level, she gets more mobility, being able to move after her movement is done. And then her level 3 is, I'm going to increase the fate cost of everything you want to spend fate on within 3 hexes of me. She's one of those models that I would say, like, I want to be like, yes, she's an A-tier model, right? But she has a major downfall to me, which is her damage grid.
Mm-hmm.
Her damage grid being a 1-2-4, there's a lot of stuff she just kind of falls flat on her face fighting.
Yep.
And her dice pool being only melee 7, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not fighting for that she should be melee 8 or anything like that.
Oh, God, no.
God, no. But her dice pool being melee 7 against a lot of things, she's got to get that support to make it so she can actually do some work. And you and I both have seen games where even with her being melee 8 against a knockdown model, rolls 7 dice and she's still only solids for 2.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to be a bit
Dice
dicey at times. Yeah, she's going to be a bit dicey. Her mobility is pretty insane.
It is.
If you can lock her down, it's difficult to lock her down so you can actually kill her. And yeah, she's one of the only models I think that can push while dual wield. Yes, because she can trigger phase shift to curse and then push herself a hex.
Yep.
Afterburners lets her get a 2 hex move. Yeah, I think she's really strong. I think we are seeing her a bit more in Tomas at the moment. I haven't seen her a whole lot in Ista.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's pretty good. I'm probably leaning like upper B tier.
Yeah, that's where
I'm putting her. Where do you think?
I think she's got probably. I think she's under Lori's kit, but above Marcus's kit.
Okay, that's kind of where I was thinking. I think her kit's strong, and it kind of raises her a bit. We'll have to see. She's still relatively new for people that have just played V2.
Right.
But yeah, her big detriment is she definitely has some targets that are really bad for her to go into, where a lot of other damage dealers can just be okay into anything. But she really hates Res 2 stuff. Even if there's some Res 1 stuff, she's not a fan.
Yep. I think that's the best way to put it about her. So, all right. Moving on. Who do we have next?
We have Ankura. So, this one, I'm happy to see Ankura get some buffs. I've always liked the model. I've always liked the Nurgle-y things. I used to play her a lot in Tomas way back early in V2. She just felt like she had a bunch of good utility pieces to her. I played her in Tauren a little bit when I've played Tauren, but that's because I've kind of played a tankier Tauren build where, like, I think at one point I was running triple defender
Sure.
in Tauren, which was probably not great. But it, again, I don't really play Tauren much. I think her changes I think the Bell change in 2.3 was kind of interesting. I played her, I think, in one game, and it felt really awkward to get the Bell out taking an action. But the fact that it requires an action and a fate to remove, I think actually saves the Bell quite a bit.
Yes.
Because it would feel really bad. You'd put the Bell out, you'd get in a good spot, and then someone like charges in with a tank, and then just like, oh, fuck your Bell, and it's gone.
Yep. I think the change also giving her Sunder armor at level 1 instead of having that be one of the levels, I think is a fantastic, I think that's a fantastic change to the kit as well. One thing to call out there with that is obviously now it expires at the start of that model's activation that you give it to. That actually cost Peter in our game when we played in the team tournament a model. It actually cost him the Ankura because he activated her early instead of waiting for me to activate a model, and
and then put Sunder, and then you just went with the model. Yeah,
correct.
It definitely was a change. I think the combat maneuvers very strong, especially in Damas now, because you can get weaken plus contagion on a model, and that feels pretty bad. I'm pretty high on her. I've actually seen her a little bit out of God lately too. I actually tried originally when 2-hex melee got nerfed to try and include her in Gruul to kind of essentially mimic, the 2-hex melee.
Yeah.
But really tanky against melee. Has some pretty good rules. Like she's got Fly. I think Fly is nice for her. Leech is good on what's Res 2 against melee. Soul Harvest 4, she can back up Soul Gaze. She's got tools. I am actually going to put her at the bottom of A tier for me.
Okay.
I think with the new rules, she can fit in a lot of places. I think she's got a really strong debuffing kit. If you're ever playing into opponent's warband where they only really have one true melee damage dealer, Ankura can kind of lock that model down and be a pain in the ass to it.
Yep.
And if they don't really have a lot of range damage, she can be very durable to take down. And very annoying with the Bell, right? You get the Bell up there, you get something contagion. Now they're rolling 2 less dice on stuff. Like, that is a pain.
Yep. Well, and she's actually one of the beautiful things about her with the change is that she is actually a very, for me, I look at her now to actually give her a level, even if it's just to get ring the bell, right? Or if I'm looking to get backlash, if my opponent has a lot of stuff that they want to get in and spend fate, she's a model that I'm very much so looking at now going, is it worth giving you the level? Instead of maybe my normal, I'm going to give it to Fazil. Now maybe I'll give it to Ankura, for example, just to give that start to that beef up, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important thing to notate. So I definitely agree with you that she is, I think, at the bottom of the A tiers. So, yeah. All right. So up next, after Ankura, we have Piper. All right. Yeah. Let's talk about him. What are your thoughts?
So I think Piper is pretty solid. He just does a bit of everything, and is kind of annoying while doing it. I don't think anything in his kit is overbearing.
Sure.
He's in Gruul and Krognar. I play him on occasion in Gruul. I really like him when I'm not playing with the Soul Gazer.
Sure.
Because I like he's base Soul Harvest 4. He can enhance up to 5. And that kind of, gives you some options there. I think he's good with the Staff of Gruul. I've seen him in Krognar a bit. He is really mobile in Krognar, which can be pretty fun. Krognar doesn't always like to get super stuck in, though, so I don't know, if the backstab value is as good. But being Soul Harvest 4 with Enhance, he can be very mobile to pick up souls.
Yep.
Right? He can 1 action point effigy recall. He can then, walk 4, walk 3. That puts him pretty close to a lot of soul pits the following turn. He's pretty mobile.
Yep.
I'm feeling like kind of. What is going on here? The web page is being weird. I kind of put him in the middle of B. Okay, what's going on here? I actually don't hate where it decided to throw him. Sometimes the click and drag is a little funky on here. I think he's in the middle of B. I don't think his kit is insanely standout. We're not seeing him all over the place. I don't think I would ever take him outside of either god. I don't know. I don't think I'll take him in Ista. I guess Torn would be interesting because he comes back with all 3 actions, which with his mobility is kind of useful, but I think there's better options than Piper in Torn.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you because especially with Torn wanting to play a lot more of that range style game usually, you have less targets to also get the backlash benefit, or not backlash, sorry, backstab benefit on. So I definitely agree with you.
All right.
So
next up is Rakir. So Rakir is kind of an interesting one to me. He feels almost auto include in both of his gods in Kragnar and Tomas. I think he helps with Shadow Orb placement in Kragnar. He is pretty good in Tomas because of the poison.
Yeah. No disagreement there.
He is a bit dicey. That's probably going to be the biggest thing for me, but his mobility is so insane. It kind of outweighs that a bit. Yeah, he's very good at getting in there, removing things, and getting out. Probably one of the best assassins in the game, just from the mobility and the ability to live and getting to places. Right, one of the big things is being able to apply your damage where you want it.
Yep.
And to me, it feels pretty common. You can for Rakir. Thoughts on Rakir?
I have a love-hate relationship with Rakir and the fact that I love to hate him because he hates me. But I can't argue with anything that you've, made as a comment about Rakir. He is one of the best assassins in the game for being able to burst down targets, for being able to get in, do some damage, and still make it out safe without, really risking anything. I think when it comes to the 2 gods that he's a part of, Kragnar Tomas, he is constantly taken and seen. And he is definitely a model that I am constantly looking at when my opponent brings him to go, can I control him or not? If I can't, I need him gone from this list.
Yep.
And so I think that is a very, very important thing to, stress, is that if that's one of the things you have to look at, I think the boy's got to go up in one of the top 2 tiers. And I honestly think he's probably at the top end of A.
That is where I'm putting him. I think he is very on par with Fazil, where you're always going to want to take him in his gods. He synergizes well with both of his gods.
He synergizes well with both their EPs.
Yeah, he likes... Diamond armor can be interesting on him because you can protective stance him and he bounces all over. He likes bulwark a lot, right? You throw bulwark on him, he can be mobile. So he likes those kind of things from his defenders. Both warband bonuses are solid, right? He can, if he takes some damage, he kills someone, he finishes him off, he gets it. The 1 action effigy recall lets him do weird shit. Yep. With with good orb placements, he can shadow step, attack, and maybe get that poison, toxin someone, then 1 action point effigy recall. There's all these things he can do. His mobility is fantastic, and very good Rakir players are very scary to play against.
Yep.
He's actually one of the ones I tend to ban more than Fazil when I see both of them in a Tomas warband. Yep. Because at least with Fazil, he kind of has to stay where he is. Rakir doesn't have to do that. You get him to level 2, he bounces around all the play. Yeah, he's just very slippery, and that he's more frustrating for me, I think, to play into.
Yep. So, all right. Well, let's do a recap real quick for those of the those of our audience just listening to the podcast. So starting at the S tier, we have Isabel, Cruel, Drogoth, Brock, Masuzi. Then we go to the A tier where we have Rakir now at the top, Fazil right behind him, Donragar, Alandir, Istariel, Lugdrug, Bastion, Ankura. In the B tier, we have Lorabella, Nephany, Marcus, Kogan, Gendris, Piper, Ashel, Barnascus, and Hoxa. C tier, we have Kane, Nias, Maltique, Arya, Abathos. And then in the dumpster tier, we still have Cradle.
All right.
She's gotten kind of lonely down there.
She is getting a little bit lonely.
All right. So who do we have next, Wonky?
So next up is Saiyan. Saiyan, I think, has a problem. And the problem, I think, with Saiyan is that she just doesn't get great amount of value from either of the gods she's in. And she is one of the more uninteresting cards when you read it, but on the table she ends up being pretty strong. Mm-hmm. But I think other Soul Gazers still outshine her a bit more. She leans into the healing that Ista provides with Aura of Light.
Yep.
Her gun can sometimes go bananas if she's shooting someone with souls bound to it. But really, to me, she can soul strip, which is one of the few models that can. Yep. At level 3 is kind of amazing, but when you read it, you're like, this is stupid. So her level 3 lets her bank souls from anywhere on the map, which when you read it, you're like, well, that's not great. But like when she gets that second soul from like harvesting and all of a sudden just banks those souls to your effigy, like you're like, I don't care if she dies now, right? She just banked me, a sizable amount of the game.
Yep.
However, she just feels like she doesn't get much from Ista or Tomas, just because she has no melee weapon. She's got that short range magic, but she doesn't have a combat maneuver, so Tomas is kind of meh. Now, granted, you can use the blessing tokens now to do soul strip, which I think is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Or if you wait to at EP, you could use it to bank. But like she's probably not killing a lot of stuff, so the heal from that's not super relevant. You're probably not going to diamond armor her and Tomas. I feel like there's a lot better targets for that. In Ista, it is nice when she dies, she comes back on full. She does kind of lean into the whole healing shtick of Ista. She might not actually be a terrible restoration potion holder because of her mobility. Right. And when she's not gazing, she can be pretty mobile, go somewhere and apply it. But yeah, she just, to me, feels okay. And when there's other stronger Soul Gazers available, that just makes her kind of feel bad, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it.
I mean, I can't argue with a lot of what you're saying as a whole. I think with the change to the Tomas effigy power, being that they get the blessings of Tomas, at least like you said, now you can do the Soul Beckon off of them, or you can even sleep with that at her level 2. I think she definitely finds a little bit more play there, but it's definitely not, I don't think it's enough to be like, I'm going to take Saiyan over Masuzi.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a big thing right there. So,
and if you really want the soul strip, Cruel's got a better strip.
Correct. I mean, and Cruel has Curse, which usually you're setting up for in that setup anyway. So,
yeah.
So there's a lot more combination that I think the other Soul Gazers do. But I definitely think she's a good Soul Gazer. I just don't think that she's great anymore. So I think she's definitely in the C tier, and I think she's probably above Nias, personally. Okay. And that's just because even when you compare the two of their kits together, I think she does more than Nias does as a whole.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think the healing can have a lot more value. The soul strip's a big deal. I'd put her ahead of Nias. All right, so who is next up?
Next up is our big hulking boy Skull, the Orc Etten Mystic. Now, I'll be honest, this boy has been up and coming. And to be clear, he was never bad before. He just took investment, and now, with some simple changes to like his two heads, and to getting the watch out rule, Skull is like powerhousing up through the ranks, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously, he's had Bulwark, he's had the Soul Burn. Having those things has made him good before, but not having gang ups that he has to deal with anymore makes it so he can walk into places and not have to worry about it as much. He can be a little more forefrontal than he used to be.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's another hero that has a dual path to level up between with his Mystic or his Warrior. And neither one of those paths are bad. It just depends on what you're fighting into. So I definitely think that Skull has, like I would say before, Skull was probably a B tier hero as a whole. And I definitely would agree that you have now moved,
Yeah.
you put him into the A tier. I think he's definitely moved into A tier.
Yeah, I think the addition to make him a bit more durable with ignoring gang ups, watch out gave him a nice little defensive boost he can do to someone in addition to bulwark. I think Soulburn is, I think it's too much damage coming from him, to be honest. Like there's so much other stuff on his card that all of a sudden if you have like two souls on you, he just kills you, right? Because
Yeah.
like most people at that point might have some damage on you. He can roll 2d6 damage for a fade in action. He does have to deal with the two hexes, but he's got a gazillion hit points, so he's not going to care. He's got some interesting level ups. So he can do some setup with Warrior, or he can be more defensive and like shut down shooting or magic attacks. Soul Harvest 4. If you give him a defensive item, he is insanely difficult to bring down. Give him a Vorpal, you can kind of become a bruiser. I think he's very good in his two gods. I've been playing him a bit in Gruul and been enjoying him. Mostly because I was playing with Cyvera. I think you can probably put him in a lot of warbands and feel pretty good. Um, yeah, I think he pairs well with a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, Nephenine or Rakir, like I could actually see him in Tomas a bit, which we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Just because if you're playing with a very mobile Fazil, Nephenine, or Rakir, he can bulwark them, and then they can go do their mobile, wherever they want to go.
Yep.
And I think the bulwark sticks with them, so I think that's a really strong defender ability when you have more mobile damage dealers. But I don't think I've seen him much in Tomas actually, which I'm a little surprised about. And Watch Out's really good for Nephenine with the higher agi.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you kind of see him anywhere. Torn might be not as good, but like I said, I've been playing him in Gruul. I think he might have some play in Tomas, even though we haven't seen him there yet. I think
Yep.
maybe not Ista because they've got really good tank options, and you can heal so much. I don't know if the bulwark is as relevant there. I think you would go a bit other tanks,
might.
but I think he's good. I think the new kit's fantastic for him.
Yep. I think so too. So, all right. Up next, we have Sky. All right. So let's just get through this. We know Sky's melee 6. He's agi 6. He's probably one of the hardest characters in the game to actually, legitimately hit with rolling dice, because you get so few. The dude's got the ability to bounce damage around through diversion. He's still got a good solid damage grid at 2, 3, 4. You don't have anything that's slowing him down for where he wants to go because the dude's got Pathfinder, he's got Dash as an elf, and he's got regeneration as well. So he's getting health back every turn. And then on top of that, groundwork. You knock him down, he's still like, cool, I'm only going to take a 2 agi penalty, and he stands up for free at the start of his activation. Like, there's no other model that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, he's got a 1J single combat maneuver that he gives out stun and heals either himself or somebody adjacent to him for 2 health. Like, it's not a huge heal, right? But that's still a glance on most models.
Yeah, he's been feels like he's been kind of popular lately.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't like. I know he's been seeing a lot playing Tomas. I don't hate his kit. I've always thought he was interesting, and it felt like if you had any kind of tool to deal with him, he just fell over pretty
Hmm.
hard.
Sure.
But not every warband does. Dealing with Agi 6 can be problematic. He's very good at like 1v1. He's actually deceptively good around monsters because they only get 2 dice against him. He regens, right? So they can't even crit. Most, actually, no monster can crit him.
Mm-mm.
So the most they can do is 5. He can regen 2 of it, assuming they even get that. So he's really good for setting up monster kills. Level 2, he can pull stuff out of danger. To me, he feels pretty good. I don't think we see him a massive amount. Like I said, he's
Mm-mm.
kind of rising in popularity a little bit. But to me, like he's definitely when I'm playing Tomas, not the tank I'm looking at playing. I definitely am looking first at Marcus, probably eventually even more at Sharn when she releases if she stays in Tomas. Um, and I would even look at like an Ankura tank or even a Skull maybe over Sky to be honest with Bulwark compared to Sky, even in Tomas. Um, yeah, I'm not super high on him to be honest. Um,
That's fair, but he's a dirty elf to you too. So.
Well, there. I mean, hey, I was pretty upfront about rating. We got 2 elves in the A tier, so let's just
I know, I know.
I don't know.
No, I actually agree that I don't think he's A tier. If he's B tier, he's low B tier,
Yeah,
like lower than
actually,
Hoxa.
yeah,
And I think honestly, as much as I like Sky, because I've been playing with him more and I've really found a good use for him, I think he's one of those heroes that is definitely at the top end of the C tier
mm-hmm,
as a whole, which is where you placed him. And
yeah,
I definitely agree with that because he takes work to play and make good.
yeah, and
And
I
it's a
think
lot of work.
yeah, it just doesn't feel like he's always the greatest fit. I think you can build warbands where he can be okay. I think sometimes he doesn't want to be your only defender, unless you're kind of playing a more cagey warband. So I don't know. I think this is where I kind of feel he kind of belongs, and it sounds like you're in a
Yeah, like I
similar
said,
space.
I'm at the top of C, bottom of B, so I'm fine with him being there. I really like him. I think he has definitely some places to play, but you have to pick and choose
Yeah,
those. So, all right. Up next, we have Sticks.
yeah,
All right. Should we just move him into the S tier now?
yeah. I mean, I would have him probably like here if it was pre 2.3.
Yeah. So
I think
so
he is.
let's real quick,
Yeah,
just for the people who are listening. Wonky literally just pulled him up to the spot between Cruel and Drolgoth, and that's pre 2.3.
yeah. So I
All
think
right.
pre 2.3. I think that's where he would line up.
Yep.
Um, he brings probably to me the strongest kit in the game from a toolbox perspective.
Yeah.
Um, he is a model that you need to be careful with how you activate stuff with. With when he was Res 1 before plus Leech 1, he's deceptively durable. Astral Split was 4 hexes, which was a pretty big range for it. And he brings probably one of the best active abilities in the game in Nullify,
Yeah.
which allows you to remove tokens and templates from the table by paying the same cost that was paid to put it out. One of the few ways to get around Stone Form to remove, Marcus's wall or wild growth template. He's got respectable damage at 234. He was originally the only pain reflector model in the game, which is where you can cut yourself for damage, deal true damage, which I cannot tell you how many games I finished in V1 using that to cut something low and then finish it off to win a game.
Yep.
Soul Harvest 4, he's got dash, so he's mobile. Yeah, I think if it was pre 2.3, this is where I have him. And it's mostly based on the power. Like, I think the power of his kit outweighs how often you take him
Yeah, I agree.
quite a bit here. I think now with the changes. So the changes is he dropped from Res 1 to Res 0, and
Yep.
Astral Split moved from 4 hexes to 3 hexes.
Yep.
I'm actually feeling a bit lower on him. Probably high A. I don't quite know where to put him. And that's partially because you aren't going to take him in every Kragnar or Tauren list. I think if I was playing Kragnar, I would most likely take him.
I, I think if it were me placing him, I actually would place him below the Alandir Istariel.
Okay.
Not because he's bad, like he's that bad, but like you just said, he's not a model that now with these changes you're gonna always look at him, even in God.
Yeah.
You have to really kind of have that idea of like, okay, what is he doing for me?
Yeah.
You know, and so whereas like Alandir Istariel, you know, Donnie, Fazil, Rakir, those you look at and you're like, yes, I'm taking them. They tend to come right in God no matter what, usually.
Mm-hmm.
Styx is not one of those models anymore. I think he's got a good kit to him. I think he's still an A tier hero, but he just doesn't have that immediate, okay, I'm going to grab Styx and add him to this warband automatically.
I think he still is very strong. I don't mind moving him down A tier a bit because I think it's a lot riskier than he used to be.
Yeah.
And I think that, it takes a bit more practice and you can get punished a bit more with him. So I think that definitely moves him down.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's get to the original agent of aggression, which is Thorgar. All right. Let's talk about your Minotaur, man.
Yep.
What do you got?
Let's see. So he doesn't need items to do what he wants
Yep.
to do if you want to go angry mode. He requires basically 0 Fey investment outside of either if you get him items, which I don't think you have to. He doesn't require levels to do what he wants to do. He just straight up punches shit. I think he is pretty strong. If you have external healing, his level 3 is very good. But I think he's just one of the better all-around damage dealers in the game. I take him a lot in Ista because I want another tanky or damage dealer to go with my Brock.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty commonly, I will take him in Gruul because he's a very good staff of Gruul target. He's a Minotaur, which is always a plus. I actually probably put him, I think I'd actually put him above Alandir and Astariel in the A tier. And the reason being for that, I feel like you'll find him in a lot more warbands than those two. I think the rules of them, the Alandir and Astariel, are a bit stronger, but I think you're going to find like Thorgar just all over the place. Like we see him in Tauren because they need damage dealers. I think he's very commonly in Gruul. I think he's very good in Bruellen now because now you can EP and not need to go angry to go up to the melee 8. Making him crit for 8 on a charge seems asinine to me a little bit. Like, and then you get the reroll, the unerring accuracy. Yeah, I just think he, from a power level and rule perspective, he feels really good. You're going to see him in a lot of all over the place. I think any god will take him. Besides me, I haven't seen him in Tomas before.
I've taken him once or twice, but usually it's not. He's not a piece I reach for all the time in Tomas myself. I will say, I don't know if I'd rate him as high as you have him on the A tier. I think he's still an A tier model as a whole, because he does have one very big glaring downside, which is while he is he is a massive well of hit points, he is very easy to kill.
Yeah, especially if you enrage, right? So I think the important thing is knowing when to enrage, because I think that can be a bit of a trap at times.
Correct.
That people will just always enrage him to go melee 9, but then you're edgy 1, and that can have problems.
Correct. And so I think that's where, as much as I like Thorgar, I think he's definitely an A tier, but I don't think I'd rate him quite as high. But that's okay.
We'll move him down a little bit. We'll put him behind Styx then.
Sure. I'm good with that.
All right.
All right. So who's up next?
So next up is Thrommel.
Oh, your dwarf.
I love the 2-action hammer. The knockdown and stun is fun. I actually haven't played Thrommel in a bit. I've always liked his model. I've always loved his rules. He was one of the first models I bought. Swinging the big ass hammer and smashing people for 7 damage is great. I think he's very good in both Gods, in Ista, and in Tauren. I feel like he's fallen off a bit in Ista lately. I think people are going more, if they go double tank, Donegar plus Marcus.
Yeah, that seems right.
Instead, I think in Tauren he's pretty good. He's probably their beefiest model they can take with the Edgy 3 Res 2, and he likes the healing. The other models he plays with likes the knockdown. The problem is the 2-action hammer has some drawbacks if they have any kind of control elements they can do to you. He probably is one of the best level 3s in the game.
Yeah.
I think Dwarf Toss, where you can AoE knock people down for 1 fate, is kind of bonkers because you Dwarf Toss in, punch someone with a hammer, do lots of damage, and it's a fun time. However, I think he's got some detriments to him, and I personally would probably put him, as much as I love him, probably towards the end of B, possibly top of C, just because his offensive output is a big deal. I mean, in Tauren, if you crit for 7, you cut for 2, you're literally hitting someone for 9. Ista, I have had some fun with a flying nimble dwarf before. That was kind of entertaining. He doesn't defend stuff the best. Bodyguard just adds 2 res to someone. So he feels a lot more like you need to be aggressive with him to be kind of doing damage, doing the stun from the hammer, doing the knockdown with hammer time. So he does feel like he is kind of fate hungry in that regard. But it is likely you do damage on the hammer swing, and then spending a fate for the knockdown and extra additional true damage can feel pretty good. So it can be a pretty reliable knockdown tool.
Yep, 100%. Don't disagree with anything you said there. I think he's definitely lower B, top of C. So,
all right, who is next up?
Next, we have Victor, the human halfling warlock. All right, so Victor's obviously a slightly newer model, as he came out just before Adepticon, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so this dude is like, he's one that I honestly have troubles kind of figuring out where I want to place him as a whole, because with having a reach 5, blast magic attack that's still 2-3-4, he's agility 5 as a halfling, magic 7, he's just solid. He is small, so he can't shoot over walls and stuff, which he
can, as long as his target is not small.
Right. Okay. Sorry. So he can't shoot himself over walls.
Correct.
Or some of the goblins who are small.
Yeah.
When they come, but he does have a major detriment in that his health pool is relatively small as well. But he's one of the few models who also doesn't always feel like you need to get him a magic item.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty rare, I would think. But
yeah, I mean, I think the item you get him a lot of the time, if you're going to, is Shredder.
Yeah.
Because realistically, there's going to be a soul on the table, and he's going to use that siphon to be like, cool, I'm magic 8. Bang, bang, bang.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest thing to his kit as a whole is the fact that he has the ability to place himself adjacent to an unbound soul. He has the ability to just look at demons on the table and go, shoo, go away, when they're, the monsters or summons. And he can even make enemy demon models take D3 damage and suffer stun.
Yeah, I think obviously the big thing is the summoning, right? So
right, which I was just getting to.
Yeah. So he got nerfed quite a bit coming to 2.3. I think he probably was the most overpowered hero in the game.
Very much so.
We weren't seeing him as much as I would have expected during that, but I think people were kind of knowing that the nerf was coming, so why play him as much?
Yeah.
I think you're still going to see him a bit. I think he's still incredibly powerful with his kit. It's just there is some actual counterplay to him now, which there was not before.
Mm-hmm.
So based on a frequency, I would probably rate him a little bit lower.
Yep.
But based on the power of his kit, I think that kind of raises him a bit.
Yep.
I'm actually thinking bottom of A-ish tier for him. I think the strength of his kit raises him up, but he can be a little bit fate hungry with the like Elgarath. He can be squishy if you can never get a hold of him, depending on how you're playing him. So there is some
Yep.
risk there. But I'm kind of feeling like back bottom of A is my current thought process.
All right. I won't disagree with that because with the demon summoning,
Yeah.
yeah, that raises his kit back up. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, some of the shenanigans got toned down quite a bit, which I
Yes.
think helps, which is what reigns him down to an A for me. And then, we were kind of also rating a bit on how frequently you see them,
Yep.
and I think that kind of is a knock on him as well.
I agree. 100%. All right. Let's talk about your mini girl.
So, um, I think from a power level perspective, she's probably a bit higher than this.
Okay, so who are we talking about?
Zyvera. So Zyvera is next up. Yeah, it's for audio only. So Zyvera, I think, can be very, very strong.
Yep.
The problem is there's a lot she wants around her, and she can also have some activations that don't feel great, depending on what map you're playing. I played her in the team event. However, I got to play on 3 pretty advantageous maps for her because things were pretty compact. On a lot of the maps where you have to split a lot more, I think she can be a bit of a liability because she wants, first off, something near her to cut, or if she's cutting herself, something to kind of make it dangerous to go in on her. However, Soul Link is incredibly strong once you get her to 3. Her level 2 can be pretty strong when comboing with Gruul's Warband bonus. However, I don't think I've ever seen someone play her in Tauren. So she's in Gruul and
Yeah,
Tauren.
I don't think so either.
I don't think I've really seen her. Maybe you can do something with, some Skull plus her plus Hoxa shenanigans in Tauren. But I think she's got some issues. Like I said, I really enjoy her. I have fun playing her. However, I feel like when it comes to other Soul Gazers, she's not really as point and click as some of those other ones are. And I think that's really a big hit to her when it comes to the tier. Granted, I think you can make her work. I have some warbands with her that she does fantastic in. But when we're kind of comparing her to other heroes, I think she falls a bit short. Not that I feel like she would really need changes to move up much. Because I feel like if you made her more durable on her own, then it gets very dangerous
Yeah.
for her. So I think this is more just she requires a bit more babysitting and support, whereas a lot of the other ones really don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Granted, in my heart she's a lot higher, but my head says,
Right. No, I'm with you. It's one of those things like Zyvera was one of the first models I actually got to sit down and play with. And I loved what I got to do with her. To this day, I still love her kit as a whole. Her level 2 is one of the biggest pains in my asses known to man.
Yeah.
And I love her for it because it very well fits her and it's very unique to her. But like you said, there's just a lot of investment that you have to put in to really make her work. And she's not as easily point and click. So I definitely, while I would love to see her higher as a tier, I definitely think she's a D tier Soul Gazer compared to the rest of the models that are out there.
Yeah, and she's going to hurt a lot when Svetlana comes out, right? Because losing, like, she'll be right now, she gains a bit because she's the only Soul Gazer in Gruul, so if you want to play in God. But with Svetlana, we don't know exactly how the rules will shake out, but she was in Gruul in the test realm, and she was looking, strong back then, right? So
yep.
So that hurts her a bit too once it happens. All right, next up is
Yorgoth. All right. So Yorgoth obviously is Gruul Krognar. He's got 2 hex reach on his big mace. He's got a solid damage grid of 235. He has shadow, so he can mess around with shadow orbs. He naturally has steady, and obviously he gets more melee as shadow orbs are around. While they're adjacent to him, he can place them with a combat maneuver, and obviously he has a knockdown that he can do. He can leap. He's got the ability to destroy orbs to do damage, and the dude just can remove all the tokens from him with a fate. So, like the biggest downsides I see to him is that he's very glass cannony, right?
Yep.
When somebody wants to come in on him, they come in on him and they usually blow him up.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of similar to Thorgar, right? It's just
it's
edgy 3 res 0. You have a lot of hit points, you have regen, but yeah, he can feel a little squishy at times.
And so it's one of those things like I love Yorgoth. He's a model that I personally want to get better playing. But I don't know where I rate him entirely, simply because the fact he's very level dependent as well.
Yeah.
Like if you want him to go, you have to give him that first level, it feels like.
He is very level dependent. He doesn't necessarily need items, which is nice because of the plus melee from Shadow Orbs. I have been struggling to make him fit in some of my Gruul warbands lately, partially because with Gruul you tend to want to make sure you have a good staff of Gruul targets. And he's not someone that's going to typically want that because he is already Reach 2, but he is inherently Reach 2, which is nice. I think one of the bigger knocks on him in general is he is not the greatest at attempting to kill something. And spreading around damage is not always very advantageous.
I was going to say, it's not always what you want to do.
Yeah. And he has no way to do additional damage, right? So he's a 2/3/5, the normal damage dealer grid, but he has no fate ability to do more damage. He has no, backswing or something of that nature. Now, he can do more damage with momentum. Once he gets level 2, if he crits, he can attack another target, which is strong. And then at level 3, you can make his floor very high because any solid becomes a crit. So, that's really good. But he did get nerfed coming into 2.3. You have to do, I think, just a flat actual crit to trigger.
So,
momentum. Yeah, so solid blows or criticals. Critical strike doesn't apply. Oh, attacks generated from momentum.
It's his secondary attack that he gets. He now has to roll an actual crit to do crit damage.
I quite like him. He's another one I've been meaning to kind of get back to a little bit in Gruul. But I've been trying some different builds. So I kind of would put him, I feel like middle of the B tier.
Yeah, I think middle of the B tier is probably right.
What is going on here? The website is being... Oh, where do you go? Okay. Oh, no. Okay. Zafin, you're not done yet. Okay. I'd probably put him... I think I'd put him a little ahead Piper. He definitely can go off and do crazy shit, which I think is kind of fun with him. But I think overall he's kind of middle of the pack. If you put some effort into him, he can do a lot for you. But you also have to realize that he's very consistent, very flat damage. But you can also spread that damage out, which there's definitely value in. So I think that's Yorgoth. All right.
Yep.
Who is next up, Fabius?
Next we have Zarin. Actually, should we do Zafin? Because I think he's actually the next one in alphabetical order.
We'll just do Zafin. Yeah, we can do Zafin. So,
all right.
Zafin's another 2-action shooter, which is good. He is in Gruul and Bruellen. I think the Bruellen change will actually make it so he would get played in Bruellen. I don't think you would necessarily play him before. He has the same detriment that I think Ashel does with the 2-action shot.
Yep.
He originally had better melee stats than Ashel, but now Ashel got the melee pump up. Honestly, he feels similar to Ashel to me.
Okay.
I don't think he has dramatically better rules than Ashel does. You kind of got to play a similar game too of protect the Ashel, protect the Zafin.
I think Zafin has, being Res 1, yes, he's Agi 3, but Res 1, and a higher health pool because he's a dwarf, definitely gives him a little more resilience. But there is one thing that Zafin has that Ashel doesn't as well. which is Monster Slayer. So, and that's something he didn't have before.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think that. So it's nice, but if you're using your 2-action shooter to have to shoot monsters, you're probably in not a great
well,
spot.
well, what I was going to say, where I was going with that is, it actually leads to him in a way being able to get to that early level 2 off of a monster kill right away
Yeah.
a little bit easier, which is fantastic in my opinion, because obviously we all know that, with Zaffin as a whole, he's got the Viper shot, he's got the knockdown that he can do, he's got big game hunter, but the moment that you can give him a level and now he's getting extra dice against somebody else, you're just increasing your odds of getting those
Mm-hmm.
hits and such that you need.
Yeah.
And I know you did it the other night where he had like a Heart Seeker, was able to aim, and had his
Yeah.
anonymity going on. And so all of a sudden it's like, cool, he's effectively range 10. Whee!
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of fun. I mean Astral can get mostly there, right? It's 9. I think the big thing
Yeah.
is the like which combat maneuvers you favor,
Yeah.
right? So like Zaffin can knock down, Zaffin can poison, Astral has fire and pin, right? So
Yep.
there's that. Zaffin's better single target because he can do big game hunter. Astral can split with bombard. So
Yeah.
yeah, Zaffin's a bit more durable. Critical rage is
Yeah.
whatever is a little bit interesting with Astral from a defensive standpoint. I think they're pretty similar to me.
I would agree.
Like they feel the same. I think if you're gonna play one of the 2-action shooters, you're gonna play one of them. If
Yeah.
you're not, you're not because the floor is low and you don't want to have to play the mini game of
Yep.
can I get value from them.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of them. I think Astral probably would be bottom of C tier before his changes. I think Zaffin is probably would have been. I mean, he didn't really change much from Test Realm, so I think they're hurt a little bit that a model like Alandir can shoot the same distance they do, but not have the 2-action penalty. I think that hurts them a little bit, just from like the floor of Alandir feels a lot higher, but obviously the ceiling of those two can be a bit more. So
Yeah.
okay,
100%.
all right. So who is now next up?
After Zaffin, we have Zarin. All right. Let's talk about the avatar of Krognar himself, right? This dude has a good solid magic attack. He does have a melee attack, so he has a way to fight if he needs to. He can mess around with the shadow orbs and such by using those as he gets higher level. He can place them. He has the ability to give people leech 2. And then of course he's got his skeletons he can summon and even soul harvest through.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, one of the more unique things about him as a whole is the fact that when he dies, he explodes for 5.
Yeah.
And as soon as you level him up, so do his skeletons. Only they explode for 2. But it's all of a sudden now you're just getting some possible free damage on these things that it's like, cool, I have a soul on me, I'm going to summon it for free.
Yeah, the ability to cover multiple soul pits on some of the maps in this rotation is really nice.
Yeah.
I think that's really strong with him. He has a reach 5 shot, which is what a lot of the ranged damage dealers have with a 2-3-4 grid with Magic 7. So he's, when he's not gazing, he is on par with, a Victor damage grid for shooting or an Astariel damage grid. Now, granted, they've got things that modify what kind of damage they can do, right? But he's got those same base stats. I think that's really nice with him. Obviously, the skeletons are good. We've seen him on occasion outside of God. I know you played him in Ista a while back. I think I've seen him in Ista. So I think there's some room for him in places. He can be a little bit fate hungry if you don't get a soul on him if you're trying to play with the skeletons. And so you can also be a little bit dependent on getting that first soul. So if you can't get that first soul gaze with him, it can feel a little bit bad because you definitely want a soul on him. The exploding for 5 is definitely fun. I am not quite sure where to put him. I feel like
I think he's either low A, high B.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was starting to think. I think you'll see him a lot in Krognar. I don't think he's necessarily a requirement in Krognar, even as an avatar. I think he helps if you're playing a Kragnar to have him because he becomes a
Hmm.
Shadow Orb. Because you can only have a limited number of them. So I think low A to me feels pretty good. He's got strong rules.
Yep.
Um, I ban I tend to ban him just because I don't want someone to cover multiple soul pits depending on the map.
Right.
Which I think is probably one of the best tools that he provides. And then yeah, skeletons are super annoying.
Yep. All right, Wonky. Who's next?
All right, well now we're gonna get the Lich version of Zarin, and that's Zim Gigarak. Zim is an undead frost mage. He brings the easiest application of the frost combat maneuver, which might be one of the strongest conditions in the game. There's been some talk about doing some weird shenanigans and forcing him to level 3 for Unholy Tether, to play around that a bit. I've always been a bit of a fan of his. I know his damage output is not quite as good as other shooters. He has no melee weapon, so if you gotta take parting blows, but he can switch stuff, which is interesting. But I think people in general have been pretty low on him. I think that's changing a little bit, but I don't foresee it being a big thing. I know in Torin, people tend to go more towards the Alandir, the Astariel versus Zim. I quite like him in Tomas because I like to play a bit more debuffy, control-y version of Tomas.
Right.
So I like having the ability to frost. But holy crap, sometimes does he just fall over to a stiff breeze, it feels like.
Yep. Yep.
And then he's undead, so they get a bank soul. I think
Right.
the undead part hurts him quite a bit.
I think so too. And trust me, Zim is one of those models that I love. I love my undead as a whole. So I think if as much as I love Zim and I would like to be like, yes, he's a higher tier. I think he's realistically a C tier.
That's kind of where I
Um,
was putting him. I'm not sure in the C tier.
I think,
Probably close to Maltique is where I'm thinking. Where
yeah, I think right there, close to Maltique, I think is
okay,
reasonable. He's a mid C tier character. He has a niche that he hits. He fits it very well, but he doesn't fit it everywhere, right?
yeah,
So I think C tier is a perfect place to put him, with his abilities that he has. When he goes off, he goes off and he does well. When he doesn't, he doesn't. So, all right, Wonky, we have our final hero of the night, which is Zonia,
yep.
the avatar of Bruellen,
The tactical nuke.
the tactical nuke, the assassin meets Brassassin. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about her as a whole here. With her kit, right? We've mentioned her a couple times earlier tonight as we were comparing some other models and stuff. The fact that she's a melee 8 model. She brings a 2-3-5 damage grid just like Yorgoth does. Um, but she has that ability that every time she crits, she's dropping that fury counter on somebody and you can death toll them. So it's like if she gets that ability, like you were saying with Cruel earlier, to charge somebody and hit them twice and she crits them three
Yep,
times, right?
yep.
You're looking at 3d6 true damage. There's I can't think of a damn model in the game that's surviving 15 damage from a hit
Yeah,
and then 3d6 true damage. Even an armored character taking 9
yeah.
and then 3d6 true damage, the odds of them surviving that are so damn low.
Yeah, and she gets some dice fixing from the avatar bonus. It gives her unerring accuracy for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she you point her in a direction and something dies unless your dice fail. There's been a lot of stories of them. I think that she is. Yeah, I mean she's just the best, the best remover of a model in the game. Now, how do you keep her alive can be a little bit more difficult, but she gets extra movement at level 2 and extra melee when charging. You can get things like second wind to give her an additional action when she kills something, and then commonly she was taking the ring of teleport to the scroll of teleport, which would allow you to kind of get her to the effigy with that extra action. Now it's once per game, but that could be enough. Yeah, I think if you're playing Bruellen, I think it is definitely, she is 100% an auto include.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, she is a little bit weak on the counter punch. She is not the most, you know, durable thing. However, dead things can't attack back. So,
Right. Well, and
um,
one of the things to note about that counterpunch you're talking about, right, is if you get her to level 3, and I shouldn't really say if, I should say when, because she's notorious for that.
yeah.
She does have that ability that if somebody charges her, she's going to hit them first.
Mm-hmm.
And if she gets that crit, now she only needs to possibly swing once more during her turn. And if she can get that second crit, now you've got 2 Fury tokens on you.
Yeah.
She's still going to have 2 actions left after she death tolls you. So I think that's a really important thing to just kind of think about as a whole. As to where to place her, I would honestly say that I think she's in the A tiers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure personally I'd probably put her in this website. It's weird. Like I'm trying to click and drag, and I don't think I can refresh because it will. I think it clears it.
Clear it all.
So I think I would actually. I think that's where I'd put her. I think she
That's
is pretty auto include. We've seen her a little bit out of God.
Yeah.
On occasion, I think I'm a little surprised we don't on occasion see her a little bit more out of God.
Yeah.
Because she can add some really big burst damage and tank busting that very few characters can provide you. And she doesn't require combat maneuvers, which can be good, can be bad, depending on, with Rakir. Rakir is a bit more mobility and probably a bit more survivable at times, but I think he's less reliable to just remove something. So I think I think she goes ahead of Rakir there. And with that, that is what we have. So we'll do one last quick recap before we wrap this up. So, so in the S tier, we've got Isabel, Cruel, Drogoth, Brock, and Mizuzi. Pretty universally good characters, no matter what god you're playing.
Yep.
Then the A tier, you have Zonia, Rakir, Fazil, Donragar, Alandir, Stariel, Styx, Thorgar, Lugdrug, Skoll, Bastion, Ankura, Victor, and Zarin. So these are models that are not quite auto include, but pretty heavily. Also, some really strong kits, even if they aren't very popular, right? So the Styx and Victor, I think, are kind of more in that boat versus Muse. Then the B tier is Lori Bella, Nephenine, Marcus, Kogan, Gendris, Yorgoth, Piper, Zaffin, Ashel, Barney, Haxa, Thrommel. So that's more your. They've got a niche. They probably do it well. They can be powerful in certain situations or certain warband builds. Then we've got the C tier. So that's the Sky, Kane, Saiyan, Nias, Zim, Maltique, Arya, and Abathos. And those are the much more niche. You'll see them on occasion, but there could be better options. But if you like them, use them. And then D tier, we've got Zyvera and Cradle. I think they just you really need to put a lot of focus in them to make them shine. And, sometimes is the juice worth the squeeze at that point. And I think in Cradle's case, I think her kit's good, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel good and probably take some practice. And there's some other ones that can kind of do some of the stuff that she likes to. So, all right, that is our hero tier list. Fabius, do you have anything you'd like to kind of wrap up with?
Well, I mean, the more I'm looking at this list, the more that I am going to take my number one choice and agree with you. I think Abathos, looking at the tier list and the way we've done it, I do think that he drops down into the D tier now. Yeah. It pains me to say that because I love his model. I love what he can do, but I do feel like he definitely could use a couple tweaks to make him better. And bump him to that C tier list now. So, but with that, guys, we thank you for sticking with us in this. We hope that you enjoyed, both the podcast or the video when it comes out. And as always, if there are future topics that you would like us to cover, please definitely ping us in the podcast and streams channel or DM them to us. We would love to talk about them. And as always, the game is out there. Make sure you're getting out there and playing those games. Sign up for the Vassal Leagues. And as always, Wonky, let's portal on out of here.